Happy Rose Day, happy new Doctor Who birthday, whatever whatever you celebrate, however you celebrate it. Happy 26th of March to all who
Happy
celebrate.
Rose Day, Mark. Happy Rose Day.
Happy Rose Day, Ben.
Well, okay, that's why we're doing it. It's the 20th anniversary of New Who returning, 26th of March, the broadcast of Rose by Russell T Davies, and we said this at the end of our last little Doctor Who. They're on the Time Lash pub. What do we call them? Local groups. That's what,
Yeah.
Oh my god, it's not even.
We were talking just before we started about Ben possibly having Alzheimer's, and I was like, don't be ridiculous. No, now I'm fully on board with this diagnosis.
I'm just tired. I'm just tired all the time because of the baby. But yeah, no, right. So we said that. We said, why don't we do a commentary on Rose? And then that grew to, why don't we just replicate the entire BBC One evening schedule in real time and do it so that people can join us, which is why we're starting now, 5:15. I mean, obviously it's traditional Doctor Who time across the ages, but we're not going to get straight into Rose. We're going to be watching the documentary that kind of reintroduced us to the very idea of Doctor Who as a cultural landmark that was broadcast on BBC One.
Which it didn't really occur to me at the time, right? We'll maybe discuss this as we're doing the commentary on it. It's kind of mad, isn't it, that this went out?
There's
I feel like, you know, like they make such, because my memory of and we'll get to this in more detail as we go on, but my memory of 2005's Doctor Who was very much, yes, it's a continuation, but you don't need a primer. You can just jump on. And yet, there's a primer, like a couple of hours before the episode goes out. And I guess it's all promo. Again, we'll discuss that. It's very much a kind of promotional exercise.
It is, but there's. I mean, you're right. There's in my head, and I think a lot of us, there was a kind of building towards Doctor Who having continuity in these first 3 RTD seasons. Remember how crazy with enthusiasm we all went in when Family of Blood was on, and we saw the Doctor's kind of sketchbook with kind of inked in images of all the old Doctors. And we're like, oh my god, this is the first time they're actually acknowledging that there was previous incarnations. And it's like, no.
Yeah,
they stuck a documentary
with new interviews with all of the surviving Doctors.
Yeah, I don't know why we got it into my head that there was some sort of attempt to kind of separate it off, make it its own thing, and then
it's weird, isn't it? Sorry, I just saw quite a funny comment there from Lee from the Polish Box, who will be joining us later to do our commentary on Rose, who says, hang on. Is that showing up?
Yes, I can see it. Yeah.
Saying replicating the entire BBC One schedule for the night. Can't wait to see you two doing winning lines and match of the day later.
And of course,
and then he says, although given Ben's possible medical diagnosis, Parkinson, I'm not going to do my Michael Parkinson impression. I don't mind kidding. Of course, I'm going to do my Michael Parkinson impression. Ladies and gentlemen, Michael Bublé. Thank you.
That was more like Shock Eye from the 2 Doctors. Really, I mean, that's
that's fair. That's fair.
So this is going to be. I'm really looking forward to this. It was broadly lining up. I'd kind of made at the start of the year the promise, the hope that I was going to go to a convention. Not necessarily Doctor Who, you know, sometimes one of these kind of like big sci-fi or fantasy cons. I was going to try and do one a month. And actually, I couldn't find one in the locality or in my financial position for March. This is it. This is the exciting fandom thing for this month. I'm really looking forward to this. This is like a little party. I know we've got guests coming later on.
We've got guests. I'm just pouring myself a drink of...
what are you drinking, Mark?
Absolutely fucked it.
So it's called a pint of I fucked it. I know you're esoteric booze names, but it's getting out of control, mate.
No, it's another kind of time traveling taxi.
Okay.
Which because that's exactly what we're doing. We're going back in time to the 26th of March 2005. And there's but there is more themed booze lined up for later, as is the On the Time Lash format.
I'm just having a cup of tea. It's only tea time, so I'm only having a cup of tea. When the guests start calling around, I'll get into the harder stuff, and then I've got a bottle bubbly with a cork. I could have just gone for a cheapo £8 bottle, but that was just a screw top.
With a little plastic cork shaped screw top.
Yeah, but I wanted like a proper like poppy cork sound, so I had to pay an extra £5 to get a bottle that. Anyway, it's all worth it, mate. Here we are. Here's to us.
Here we are
on Happy Rose Day. Cheers.
Now, before we start in 4 minutes, what I'll do is I'm going to pop the link to the A New Dimension documentary for anybody that wants to watch along at home. I mean, of course you do, because otherwise, well, I don't know. People listen to commentaries as podcasts. They don't necessarily need the visuals. But if you do want the visuals, I'm just going to pop that link.
Cool.
In there.
So, what is the link? Where are you sharing, or what?
It's on the iPlayer. So it's the Doctor Who New Dimension entry on the iPlayer.
Cool.
It is also available on YouTube, but I'm going to share the legitimate links because
fair enough. Well, so it should be pointed out.
You wouldn't steal a 20-year-old Doctor Who documentary, would you?
Well, so it should be pointed out. So yes, it is on BBC iPlayer, Doctor Who: A New Dimension. It is also on the Doctor Who Confidential YouTube page, where that production company have uploaded all of the uncut. I know, like on the DVDs and the Blu-rays, it's just those kind of confidential cut downs. If you want to see the full thing, they're all up on the Doctor Who Confidential website. YouTube page. Theirs, though, is the original. There is an edit, which we'll maybe talk about either now. There's an edit where some problematic 1960s individuals have been edited out of this newly uploaded Whoniverse BBC iPlayer version, whereas the original with existing problematic individual is still on YouTube. So it's up to you. It's up to you, dear viewer, which one you want to have a look.
I mean, no Clark's in the finished version, so I mean, there's still at least one problematic individual in the
person I'm referring to is so much worse than Noel Clark. If that is something we can say before 6 p.m. on the internet,
it should be said. It should be said.
But we're going with the iPlayer version.
Yes.
So I've got my screen here. I've got my watching device just here.
I have multiple windows open on my screen. So yeah, I guess well, it's not quite 25 past yet, is it?
We're just gonna stare at each other.
I was just gonna. We've not really thought this through. No, vamp.
I'm looking forward to this. This is going to be good.
I hadn't seen this. I
Yeah.
watched it at the time, but I hadn't seen this since. Because I mean, why would you revisit it? I suppose. But yeah, it's such an odd little thing.
Yeah, well, it wasn't available for so long. Like, it wasn't included on like Blu-ray or DVD release.
Mm-hmm.
But it's essentially, I mean, it's the same team that make Doctor Who Confidential. This is essentially a confidential production. This is episode 0, which I'm very much looking forward to, even though I can hear my child screaming in the background. And I'm like, don't do this to me.
Well, that is 5:25.
Is it?
So I guess we should. It's 5:25 on BBC One on the 26th of March 2005, and we're about to watch Doctor Who: A New Dimension in 3, a 2, a 1. Now here we go. Now these sort of like spirograph style designs.
Yeah,
that wasn't part of the confidential intro, was it? That's kind of like a new.
It wasn't, Can I say I've already fucked it? I've already absolutely fucked it. I don't
He's
know
watching
why.
fucking Doctor Who Confidential, isn't he?
Oh,
Or is he
mate, can we honestly tell you what? Can we honestly just stop and start again?
Yeah. What
That
did
is
you
fucking
do?
ridiculous. I don't know. Right, hold on. Oh, I can't believe this.
See, in the old days, you know, this was all you
We
wouldn't you'd have
tested
missed
this.
it.
We
You'd
went
have
on.
missed it.
Before. This is absolutely insane. I'm really sorry to everybody, especially to you, Mark. I insisted that we meet up a little earlier and that we get this
tested
all
everything
straightforward, and I did. And I don't know, but I didn't want to do it like Mark's doing it and just have it on one machine. I thought that's probably going to be a problem, so we'll just do it on the. Okay, I tell you what, I'm just going to do exactly the same.
So is it what? Just the other device just isn't working.
Yeah.
Oh, damn.
Okay,
who's directing this live stream? Keith Boak, eh?
Right. There we go. Okay. Okay. Forget this. Right. So I'm also I'm gonna have to get a free one of these. So light's gonna change. Okay. Bear with me.
Well, while Ben's
I knew this was gonna be a ball ache because
I'm gonna just
worked perfectly when
let's see, what have we got here? I've got some filler here. I've got
No, you're good. I'm ready to go now. I'm ready to go
good,
now.
good. That's fine, because I just had a list of notable deaths from 2005, and I was like, I don't know if that's
well. Don't let my lack of professionalism stop you.
No, we must stick to the timetable.
Okay, let's do a 3, 2, 1, go again. Okay.
All right. So, Doctor Who: A New Dimension in 3, 2, 1. Here we go. The first. Cool. So my original memory of this was that it was a documentary that was kind of just made up of little bits from that 40th anniversary documentary they did, but that's absolutely not what this is, and I don't know how I've conflated that in my head. Yeah, because I thought it had all that stuff with Tom Baker in the swing park and all this kind of thing.
No, that was it called The Story of Doctor Who?
Yeah, but I thought they'd kind of taken
that was 2003 that was broadcast.
Yeah, and I thought they'd taken footage of that and kind of just cobbled that together with some new stuff. But no, this is all new, isn't it?
This is all new. That Story of Doctor Who broadcast in 2003. There was also like a Doctor Who night. Not the one that like that kind of big nights event. There was a smaller BBC Two night presented by what's his name? John Culshaw, who I think they did a replay of that documentary as well. So it was quite fresh in people's minds as like the introduction to Doctor Who. And whilst that was quite a fun documentary, it's actually also Tom Baker on like playground rides, looking kind of worse the wear for certain aspects of his lifestyle.
Like he's come home from the pub and he's decided to have a little go in the swings. But anyway, we're not here to discuss
melancholic. This is much more celebratory, you know.
It is. What's really funny that at the press launch footage we've got there of Russell on his little plinth, you've got the host from Platform 5 or Satellite 5.
Guy in blue. His name was Simon Day, wasn't he? But it's not the fast.
Not that Simon Day.
Yeah.
Also, what's interesting is that when they talk about Russell T Davies as a writer, I mean, obviously it's to promote Casanova on BBC One, but it was on BBC Three, wasn't it? It ended up on BBC Three.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I think.
But
did it get one of those kind of started on 3, went over to 1?
Maybe, but that's the thing they chose to showcase first. Now, if it wasn't for David Tennant, I would just go, well, yeah, because that's the most recent project before Doctor Who. But of course, the conspiracy theorist in me is like, well, they know David Tennant's going to be the next Doctor Who, so they're teasing us. They're sort of teasing him up.
I don't think it's conspiracy theory. I think you're absolutely right. I mean, you said this in a message the other day. Is it priming the audience for David Tennant? And looking at the dates, there's no way that when this went out, they didn't already know that Tennant was going to be the next Doctor.
Yeah.
I know, obviously, him and RTD were pals, but I think looking at the dates, I think I sent you the dates over. It was the 16th of April that David Tennant was announced to the press as the new Doctor. So that's before the end of the run of this series.
Yeah,
and it's the 21st that he films his segment that will slot in at the end of Parting of the Ways.
Well, him and Russell T Davies tell a story on the David Tennant does a podcast with, where he's like, him and Russell and Julie Gardner invite David Tennant around for dinner or something. I think while they're making Casanova and offer him the job.
Right.
So yeah, they absolutely know that he's the next Doctor Who at this point. And they probably go, and actually, while you're at it, do you mind narrating this primer documentary that we're going to stick on BBC One on Saturday night?
So we're on to the 8th Doctor. So this is what this was like. Obviously, this is a break for this is a new Doctor Who, but
yes,
the remit of this documentary seems to be Doctor Who has been an important part of the television landscape for so long.
Yeah,
and this is a grand return. This is not. So we're talking about the 8th Doctor here. So they're going back in time. Now, can we talk about briefly? We didn't acknowledge it when it was on screen. That Paul McGann's tenure as the Doctor ran from 1996 to 2000. That's a new one.
That is weird, isn't it? Is that because obviously this is the thing they keep talking about how he's the perfect Doctor for the new millennium, and it's like, well, yeah, but it was set in 1999 on the eve of the millennium. It wasn't actually released then, right? We all know that, right?
Yeah.
Why do we keep talking about this as if this went out on Hogmanay 1999?
Yeah,
very strange.
I wonder if there's a sense, because you could put it down to a researcher just not doing it properly. I feel like that's something. I feel like this initial phase of Doctor Who, people like Julie Gardner, like Russell T Davies, had their fingerprints all over it. Something like that slipping through is probably improbable. So I wonder if there's an attempt to make it seem like, rather than a previous return of Doctor Who was deemed a failure, they wanted to make it look like it was actually a success.
Maybe, yeah.
You don't really want to acknowledge the past, because I think later, having watched this in prep, there's not really a sense of cancellation, hanging over the Colin Baker aspect of it.
No, there's not. Although they skirt around it when we get to it later in the evening. They sort of skirt around it a bit in Confidential. Now this is interesting. All this stuff here about making Cassandra for the end of the world.
Yeah.
And the sort of monsters in the footage. This must have been the first time we've seen a lot of this footage, right?
I mean, they're being incredibly generous showing you what's coming up.
It's like a proper stay tuned kind of thing, isn't it?
Yeah. I'd forgotten how much that they were showing in this documentary of upcoming episodes.
Yeah.
That's unheard of now.
I think it goes as far as Aliens of London, doesn't it? And World War III. So it's like those first 4 or 5 episodes. Here's what you can expect, sort of thing. But I suppose on the Jonathan Ross show, did they not do a full season trailer as well, which had a lot of footage in it? I seem to remember.
Yeah, I think they did.
Like that.
I do remember when it came to actually watching Rose, and I will talk about it, but I had not seen the full episode leak.
Yeah, we will.
But I feel like there were a few scenes that I definitely seen to death before I actually.
Yeah, we'll definitely talk about that when we talk about the kind of build up, because there was a few scenes they chose that were key to kind of, we're on every talk show, every sort of morning breakfast thing.
Run for your life and
the world
alien,
turning.
Why do you sound like you're from the north? All that kind of stuff. I feel like.
So now we're into the 1980s. It's Blue Monday by New Order. It's Davison playing cricket.
Yep.
This is the 1980s. interesting. So what have we got here? Yeah, the pound. Like, I like all these like little historical details as if they have any bearing on the Davison era. Yeah, the pound was introduced. The Thames Barrier was built. None of that factors into the era at all, really.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. But they're definitely trying. They're definitely making a case for
It's
culturally this show
exactly, yeah,
feeds itself through the latter half of the 20th century.
Doctor Who is a British institution, and that's kind of like this is the next generation of that British institution.
Yeah. Although it's weird that like this is going at 5:30. They're cultivating a family audience, yet they're showing clips of Queer as Folk, the young ones,
Blackadder,
men behaving badly.
That considered an art, but yeah,
there must have been a lot of kids watching this going, "What's that? what does queer mean?" Daubed on the side of a car,
it's
drawing
so funny, isn't it? This documentary as a kind of primer for new Doctor Who. It's like was anybody actually sitting like their kids down to watch this? Like we were all watching it because like we were set up for like a night of Doctor Who. Doctor Who was back. It was like a big deal. But I do wonder if anybody was actually just like, oh, should we stick on this documentary so that the kids aren't lost? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. There's so many times the question, who's this for? What's the audience asked in Doctor Who history? And whilst I'm appreciative that this exists, I do wonder who's it for. We'll watch it. We'll watch any old shit. But you know, was there a group of people who were prospectively looking to enjoy Rose, but were like, oh fuck, I feel like I need to do some homework.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I mean, that's a great choice of clip for Colin, isn't it? Just a man in a multicolored coat with sort of flashing colored lights on his face going mental. I mean, that is the Sixth Doctor era, I suppose.
Yeah. So he is down and out to be replaced by Doctor number 7. So no chat about cancellation, just a bit of kind of like, wasn't his costume a bit bizarre? So it's very much whistle stop but celebratory. And I like that about this documentary.
Yeah. And it's quite nice. I like the idea that they've not done the obvious thing of in 1963, Sidney Newman came up with a it's like it's going backwards. You know, it's starting from now and moving its way back to the 60s. That's quite a nice kind of structural beat. I like it as a way to kind of contextualize Doctor Who history. It's like kind of going backwards rather than the kind of traditional Hartnell, then Troughton, then Pertwee, then Baker, then
they're giving it kind of like the heritage of it legitimacy rather than dropping you right back in monochrome 60s. They're easing you back, which I quite like. 1 hour 23 minutes till Rose,
until the invasion begins. Do you know what? It's been really interesting to go back and watch these interviews of Christopher Eccleston.
Yeah.
Because he talks so much in the years afterwards that he didn't really get the character. He wasn't given like a proper steer until Stephen Moffat came along and with like the scripts for the Doctor Dances and the Empty Child. And like, I don't really think that's true. And I get it. It's an actor who was going through a lot of stuff mental health wise and he's probably doubting himself and things like that. But I do think he really understands the show and the character and the way he talks about the kind of ethos of the show, that kind of idea of like all life matters, you know, all that kind of stuff. He totally gets it.
Yeah.
And he gets how to modernize it. And I think he's brilliant.
I think he's brilliant as well. Like, I love this entire series. I think Christopher Eccleston is what's not talked about is that he's bringing the Doctor back. So you'd think as an actor, there is some point of reference. There's some research that you can do because there have been to that point 7 other actors who've done it. But this is a relaunch of the show, and his Doctor is so very different from all the other Doctors that there's really no touchstone for him to build a performance. There's not like Capaldi, you can see where there's other Doctor connections, Matt Smith. Eccleston is kind of just in his own orbit. He's off to, like, as a Doctor, it's completely off to the side and on its own.
Yeah.
If he had trepidation or trouble getting hold of the character, it's because actually his version of that character just didn't exist. There was no guide for him beforehand.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
I would love to have seen him do more, because I feel
Yeah.
like after if I didn't see it, but if he thought a shaky first season, I think it would be glorious. A series 2, a series 3,
Yeah, definitely. It's they're obviously talking about the sort of making of the Unquiet Dead, and we've had Mark Gatiss talk about how overwhelming it was to kind of watch his Doctor Who sort of being filmed. I think it's really interesting that they choose to put Gatiss front and center, because obviously it's like post League of Gentlemen, so the film's out in this same year. We've had the 3 seasons. He, I guess, is the sort of, he's the big name writer. Yes, Stephen Moffat has done Coupling, and that's really popular, but he's not at that point the kind of known like figure. Like he's not doing talk shows and things like that at this stage. Moffat. Whereas Gatiss he's a known personality as an actor and also a writer. So that's a kind of added little hook there. And I guess that's why he's on all the red carpet. Him and Charlotte Church. Together at last.
Charlotte Church. Do you remember? She used to be the ubiquitous celebrity.
Yeah. Yeah.
Of course, there's obviously the Welsh connection here as well, but it's interesting who you see popping up.
Yeah. Yeah, Matt Lucas was there at one, not in this bit, but yeah, earlier in the thing. I just saw Benjamin Cook there holding out a microphone. A young Benjamin Cook. Only 30 years old then. He was only 30 years old.
Oh, look at that. They're still using like tapes, windy tapes for the recordings. Look at the mobile phones that they're holding.
Yeah.
It's mental. Like that. This is 20 years ago. What does that actually mean? I mentally am still here. I don't feel like I've changed that much, though of course I have. But looking back, just the stuff that you took for granted that didn't know, and then you look back at it and you think how odd it looks. Like back of this scene in Rose, you can see like blank VHS just on the shelf.
I know. Yeah, there's a lot of VHS chat in the listener correspondence for the next section. So excellent. Prepare for that. But yeah, it's really nice to see a kind of buzz about it in these kind of sort of clips from the press launch. It's all journalists, and yes, obviously they're going to edit. They're not going to keep in the stuff for like a TV critic goes, "It's fucking shite, mate." But it does build a real kind of like buzz for the show that it is critically acclaimed already, and we've not seen the first episode yet.
Oh, here we are, 70s.
John Pertwee with T-Rex in the background, obviously, I guess,
Pertwee glammed up the dock.
And a great, just Terry Walsh throwing hands in the car park.
I like the clips that they've picked for this. Like they've got the right balance of like showing Doctor Who and all its kind of garishness, but picking some of the funny, ironic, action-packed moments. Like even Colin Baker screaming with his head like that. Like they juxtaposed it well with a more introspective older Colin Baker talking about
Jimi Hendrix there. Katie Manning shagged Jimi Hendrix. You don't mention that. Don't mention that in the documentary, but she did.
Doctor with a gun at his face, Uri Geller. Oh, here she is.
Not talking about Jimi Hendrix, just talking about John Pertwee. He bloody loved a motorbike, didn't he? Old John Pertwee. Bloody loved a motorbike. And a bit of, they really are sort of hammering the glam rock. Even though I would say Pertwee's not really all that glam rock, is he?
Nah, he's not. But I think the purpose of having this these kind of other kind of cultural juxtapositions is if you're looking at Doctor Who and you think it looks bizarre, it's because the
Yeah.
age was bizarre. It's trying to soften the craziness of what you're seeing on screen in Doctor Who.
I tell you what, though, the Doctor Who Confidential team absolutely love setting clips of Tom Baker to Space Oddity by David Bowie. Just
it's standard practice
because it's in this, it's in Confidential, it's in the next, it's in the very first Confidential. It's like, yeah, because his name's Tom Baker, isn't it? Major Tom, and he's in space.
And he wears a kind of velvety jacket, just like Rod Hull does when he's attacking Parkinson. If you think the Scarrison chasing people looks ridiculous, well, the Goodies had a kitten on the BT Tower.
It's nice seeing Tom, like, because this is like a new interview with Tom, isn't it, as well?
No, I recognize that red scarf. I think that was in. I've seen that.
So maybe that's where I was getting the mix up with. Maybe it's just the Tom footage then that's been repurposed for this, and everything else is new, and maybe that's why I thought it was a mishmash of just like old documentary footage.
It also there's a bit of it that I seem to recognize from and you know, I may be wrong on this. Do you remember for the 40th anniversary the big weekend that UK Gold did?
Yeah,
they had loads of interviews with cast members, famous fans, all that kind of stuff. It was a really fun weekend, just Doctor Who from like 6 a.m. till 8 p.m. but with like value material as well. And there was a lot of documentaries. I feel like that was maybe part of that as well.
Okay.
Also, I didn't know that they were keeping, or they would show the Dalek as early as this. I thought that was...
I didn't think so. I mean, I remember seeing photos of it in the magazine and stuff, and in the papers. But yeah, I had forgotten that this footage...
It's mad they've just done all the big reveals.
Yeah.
Half an hour before.
Like, if you listen to them talk about it, they were not convinced that this was going to work. So, that like, as a revival of Doctor Who. So I do kind of get why you do this documentary as a kind of like essentially a sizzle reel with a bit of like contextualizing in terms of like the culture, in terms of like sort of responses from critics. It's essentially just saying to people, this is going to be fucking great, by the way. Now, whether or not those people were watching this and kind of this was getting any more new viewers than would have already tuned in, I don't know. But I think that's definitely what this is trying to do.
Yeah, it's very much... They're not... They want people to know you're not going to get everything that you want or think you want in episode 1.
Yes.
So rather than be disappointed, here's a whole documentary beforehand which just fucking throws everything at the wall. Just tantalizes you.
Oh, yes, Gates talking about Eccleston on the League of Gents. Which, remember when everybody thought this was how he was going to dress?
Yeah.
How wrong they were.
This was in series 3 of the League of Gentlemen.
It's the last episode, isn't it? It's the Cat Theatre.
Reece Shearsmith has such comedy mileage. Bloody Nora.
Interesting from that clip, though, they cut out Steve Pemberton's Chinese character.
Right, and also here we are. So that between the years appearing on screen, 63 to 66, and the Doctor and Vicky and the TARDIS, there was a clip of Jimmy Savile presenting Top of the Pops, which, as I said earlier, you can head to the YouTube page of Doctor Who Confidential if you want to see the full existing episode. But obviously, he's been quite rightly, I guess, edited out. I mean, Top of the Pops appeared on screen there, but the presenter didn't. Look at these images before the restoration team have gotten hold of them.
I know, yeah. There's so much of that in these just like really grainy as fuck images of the Hartnell era that you like now are so beautifully kind of cleaned up.
And a lot of them slowed down. Do they think that makes black and white work better?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? Oh, we're doing that thing when we on commentaries where people just start watching the thing and
Yeah.
not.
He's an old authoritative grandfather, and then the Beatles haircut shows up.
Yeah. I mean, is it like David says? It's literally a Beatles haircut. Is it?
It's the haircut that the Beatles popularized. I mean, but it
And
is
it's a
it is
slightly
odd.
shaggier cut than the Beatles. The Beatles were
Yeah.
quite that sort of
It's
mop
more
top
of
thing was
a
actually quite well put together.
Chekhov from Star Trek haircut. I would
Yeah.
It's more
Davy
of a,
Jones from the Monkees. That
Yeah.
kind of haircut.
20 years ago, there would have been a lot less clips to choose from for Trenton.
Yeah, definitely. What's interesting as well is that actually I'm just watching Colin Baker talk about Patrick Troughton, and I swear this is the exact same clip they use in Confidential a few hours later that night.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, yeah.
But yeah,
You get like you do get. I wasn't alive in the 60s, but you do get like a weird chill of nostalgia anytime you see 60s Doctor Who and other 60s things surrounding it.
But yeah, we're almost done.
Steptoe
Son also looking grimy. I mean, and not in the way that Steptoe Son usually looks grimy in terms of the quality of the images.
Kids must have looked at this and thought it was a different world.
Yeah, I know. And I wonder if there's also a part of this that's kind of going, look, this is what Doctor Who used to be, but this is what it's going to be now.
Yeah.
It's going to be like exciting and thrilling, and everything's going to move much, much quicker.
Yeah. It's good seeing. I like seeing these kind of wee backstage bits. I know they're only kind of small glimpses, but
yeah,
like you weirdly get a sense of scale of the TARDIS console room in clips like that than you do in the actual episode.
Definitely. There's some really lovely stuff actually in the Confidential sort of behind the scenes stuff from the filming of Rose. Not a lot of it, perhaps for obvious reasons, but the stuff that is in it is really interesting to see.
So that's her costume from The Long Game.
Yes,
the red hoodie thing. Apropos of nothing for that.
So they've clearly been sort of, well, I suppose it's all just confidential footage that they've then just, I guess, put together for this, I suppose. Because they just went and on every sort of single day, didn't they? They'd sort of shoot B-roll and interviews and stuff.
I don't know if you heard that just there, sorry. We're watching it with subtitles, and the subtitles said, Eccleston here being interviewed, said, I love being him, but what he actually said was, I loved being him. He spoke about it in the past tense for that little interview clip.
Yeah. Well, that was the whole thing, wasn't it? Because and then he did Mastermind, just like, please welcome Doctor Who. Well, I am for now, yes.
Buffy, so there was a guy mentioning Buffy Vampire Slayer there. There's nothing new under the sun. As we celebrate the 20th anniversary of New Doctor Who, it's also been a couple of weeks since we learned that Buffy the Vampire Slayer is getting a reboot as well, which was such a big influence on how they made this new version of Doctor Who.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there we are.
It's nice for Doctor Who to vacate the space for Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Do you feel like your appetite has been whetted, Mark?
Yeah, I feel like I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think what I thought at the time watching that, and I think it was just like, I'm buzzing now. I'm buzzing.
Yeah,
show me it now. I've got to sit through. I've got to sit through Strictly Dance Fever with Graham Norton.
I felt so fucking impatient, I can tell you.
But don't worry, viewers. We're not going to do a live commentary on that. Instead, I thought we would do, because you know, in this period, there was a lot of these I heart insert year here nostalgia shows, you know.
Yeah.
So I thought we'd do one of those for an hour and sort of talk about our memories, listeners' memories, viewers' memories. If anybody's got anybody watching wants to fire any in the comments, we'll read them out. But yeah, just kind of like memories of that sort of 2005 period, you know. And there's some really lovely ones I've got. So I'm gonna read a couple out, and we'll maybe sort of respond to them and stuff like that. We've got a lovely piece here from Artfully Liam on Instagram, who does excellent artworks. You should follow him on Insta. He says, astonishing to think that a show about time travel should pass so many milestones with increasing regularity. Surely this isn't us getting older. Whatever the revelations, Rose is a superb opener, positioning the character in routines of mundanity and then spiraling outwards into cosmic insanity in a delicate spider's web of revelations. Each layer of the onion is carefully stripped away so that the mystery actually becomes more tantalizing the further we get into the tale. We're told what we have seen so far, incredible as it is merely the tip of the iceberg of this strange character's cosmic world. That's a bold choice and one that pays dividends. The audience is catapulted into filling in the blanks with their imaginations, conjuring up entire galaxies and backstory from the odd throwaway line delivered in the contemporary mundanity of our world. That juxtaposition of the everyday and the uncanny is the balance that so many rebrands of the format missed out on. If it had gone wrong, however, it would have smelt worse than that bin that digested Mickey Smith. But this what he says.
Before or after.
But the Primer documentary, hosted by the actor who played the serial killer in Secret Smile, was appalling and nearly derailed the whole enterprise. See this shiny new mad show we're punting? Here's clips from its previous lower budget iterations that your mad Uncle Gertie loved.
Thank you, Liam. That was considered an eloquent, wonderful prose style.
Yes, very nice.
And yeah, the whole kind of what if.
Yeah, well, what if it had gone wrong? Yeah. Because that's it. Tennant was offered the job, but they didn't know they had a second series at that point. It was like, if this happens, will you be our new Doctor Who? And he's like, yeah. Great. Fingers crossed. Like it was.
Yeah. So I think they very early on knew that they were going to get a second series. Like after maybe half of the series had been broadcast.
If not.
By the end of the series, apparently, not only had... So they knew they were going to get a Christmas special on a second series, maybe about halfway through the run. By the end of the series, they'd already known they were going to get a third series and another Christmas special as well.
Yeah.
Which is
crazy.
It just shows you how, you know, because over 10 million people will watch or did watch Rose, or and it always kind of stuck around that kind of between that kind of 7, 8, 9 number. It was just popular.
Yeah, Russell T tells a really fun story on Toby Haydock's Who's Round, where he talks about the ratings, and he talks about, and it's worth bearing in mind for our constant ratings anxiety that we fucking lived in since I think the Capaldi era, if not before, where he talks about falling ratings are only really a worry for the BBC if it's falling week on week on week on week. And he says the moment that they knew they had a hit was when The Unquiet Dead went out, and the ratings jumped up 1 million from the previous week. So there was like 7 million or something for End of the World, and then 8 million watched The Unquiet Dead. And he was like, oh, that doesn't normally happen. Usually it kind of dips off and then kind of flatlines or dips even further, but it actually kind of went up again.
Was this the interview you did with Toby Haydock on his Who's Round pop? Yeah. Because he said he was in a shop and he heard ahead of him whoever was getting served first, and the guy at the till going, "Oh, it's Dickens tonight."
Yeah.
And I know it's obviously it's at its most obvious when Stephen Moffat says you need like a big slutty title to get the
Yeah.
audience in, but that having each episode very specifically have a tentpole identifier,
Yes.
like it's an episode of Friends, like the one with Ross's sandwich or something like that. Just having the episode being the one with Dickens, the one with the Daleks, the one where Rose goes home, that kind of.
And he talked about that in his original pitch, was like each episode has to have one kind of like big blockbuster element because they're fighting the Saturday Night Wars and they need to kind of get people's eyes on the screen. So yeah, it's, you know, Charles Dickens versus zombies, you know, come on. Who doesn't want to watch that instead of celebrity
absolutely.
wrestling? You know,
where do you stand on including The Unquiet Dead, which goes out in April as an unofficial Ninth Doctor Christmas episode?
It is a Doctor Who Christmas special. I watch it. I think I've watched it now. I generally watch it on my birthday because my birthday's on Christmas Eve. And it's generally a little treat to myself. I'll pour myself a little whiskey and watch The Unquiet Dead. Because I think it is. I mean, yeah, it went out in April, but it is a. It's the first of Doctor Who's many remakes of A Christmas Carol, you know, and I would say the best one. Sorry, Day of the Doctor, but it is, you know, and sorry, the actual A Christmas Carol, you know.
I love it. I love this whole series. How did you experience this first episode or this whole series? We knew each other, didn't we? Yeah,
we did.
Yeah, of course
because you, me, and Derek and the Edinburgh Doctor Who group all met up on the Sunday after, didn't we? For pints, they did like a kind of post-Rose party where we all, I think, watched the episode again, talked about it. There was a Blue Peter.
Down Cannon's Gate, was it?
Yeah, it's downstairs in the Cannon's Gate, and there was like a Blue Peter thing where we all had to make something from rubbish. And Dave Owen was it a cereal box or a pizza box or something, and then just cut around it and got a marker pen and drew Cassandra's face on it. And I think Derek made a morpho brain. I feel like I can't remember.
Yeah, he did, didn't he? Yeah. Most everyone else took a toilet roll and put kind of, you know, tinfoil around about it and called it the Rod of Rassilon. I think there was 3 different people who thought they'd be so fucking hilarious, and everyone's like,
cannot remember what I did. But so we did know each other. But I watched it. I think I maybe watched it with my sister, but I can't. I think my sister and I watched it together, because we're just like staying at my mum's, and. Yeah, I was so excited. And I think I remember just that day, kind of the day of build up. I think I'd got some beer in and I was just like, yeah, Doctor Who's back. This is going to be like so exciting. But there was that trepidation. Yeah. That kind of what if it's shit, because I didn't like, and I was the guy that when 24 moved from BBC Two to Sky, started pirating it from America because it meant that I wouldn't have to sit through advert breaks. So I was the guy that was downloading stuff on fucking dial-up. Do you know what I mean? And even then, I didn't watch the leaked CBC version that was doing the rounds.
Yeah.
I remember. I think a lot of people did, like in the Edinburgh group. I feel there was quite a few people, and people you wouldn't expect to do it as well, because they're kind of quite spoiler phobic, but that was kind of why they did it, because it was like, well, yeah, but if it's out there, everyone's going to just sit down and watch it, and then they're all going to be talking about it, and then I'm going to have it ruined, so I might as well kind of watch it. But yeah, I avoided it because I was like, I remember I did download it, and it was sitting on my desktop, and I was like, no, I'm not going to do it, because I do really want to. It was that thing of like watching it live, and this was like pre-social media, so there wasn't that immediate hit of, oh my god, did you see it? But like you would text people, you know.
Yeah.
So that kind of communal thing, like I'm like, no, I'm definitely gonna keep that.
Yeah. No, I didn't see it either, but our friend Sean did. I remember this. I remember getting in to it really worried because he'd seen this leaked version of it, and he said And Sean is the guy whose brother got us into Doctor Who, or got me and Sean into Doctor Who. His brother was very much kind of a viewer of the McCoy era, would got all the videos, fed us all the videos. I was a Doctor Who fan because of Sean's brother Eddie and his just store of tapes that he could farm out to us. I remember Sean watched it, and I was like, "Is it great? What is it? Tell me all about it." And he was like, "It's okay. It's a bit bland." I remember him saying it's a bit bland, and I understand completely now what he meant by that. It's the first episode in bringing the audience back to Doctor Who, so that by the end of episode 13 it's absolutely a solid gold hit. But that first episode where it just needs to set out the stall, I can see that. It's it's shop window dummies, it's kind of a bit of a perfunctory ending. Well, I don't want to get into it as criticisms of the episode, but I can kind of see what he means by it's in some aspects it's very functional. But when he said that to me, and I trusted his opinion, and it's not like he did a pullback and reveal going, "I'm kidding, it's amazing." I was like, "Oh, okay, well, what is it? Oh, what's?" And it's because it doesn't have immediately got Daleks in it, and there's no Time Lords or all that guff, all that kind of mythology.
Paul McGann doesn't show up for the first 5 minutes and then turn into Chris Eccleston, like all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, because it's not for you and I; it's for the new viewer.
Exactly.
There's enough of it for you and I.
Well, on that subject, David Gillespie Pratt sent us this, which I think kind of nails that feeling. So he sort of says about 2005. I was reading the Eighth Doctor Adventures religiously, so I wanted TV equivalents of the Ancestor Cell and Anacrophobia. What an idiot! It took me a couple of weeks to be won over. Parts of Rose felt very shoddy even in 2005, but now I look back and see what they were doing and why, and it makes perfect sense. And yeah, that's it, because I think a lot of us were kind of expecting some kind of Deep Space Nine, X-Files, kind of, arc-heavy version of Doctor Who, which isn't what we got, and isn't what we should have got. I think if we had got that, it would have probably only lasted one season.
Yeah. Can you see that the weight of fan expectation has been weighing down on Doctor Who since the moment it came back?
Yeah, it has. And on that subject, Chinny Vision says that out of habit, this is quite funny. This is sort of three things that they remember about the kind of build up to Rose. Out of habit, I decided to tape it on VHS, even though we had a DVD recorder. And then we purchased a lasagna from the newly opened Aldi that A, exploded all over the oven, and B, was utterly foul. And then 3, deciding that this was for the kids of today, and that was cool, and that I still had my Doctor, because I experienced the bitter old fans in the 80s who bitched on while I was enjoying Sophie and Sylve and didn't want to become one of them. And if only certain Doctor Who fans observed that over the course of the past 20 years, I think maybe we'd all be a bit happier. I don't know.
It feels like nothing has changed, really.
And that's it. Nothing has changed. I think really
it's the same but different, but same but different.
And that's exactly what I said to I remember my dad's texted me after Rose went out, and he was like, "What did you think?" And I think I did say something along the lines of, "It's the same but different," because and we'll get into that, I suppose, with the commentary and stuff. But it is so fast paced, but it does have that kind of indefinable magic of Doctor Who in spades, I think. But yeah.
So I'm just messing about with this technology. I'm not going to risk. I was optimistically going to reset up that second screen that I had, but
I'll read out some more.
I was also hoping that there might be a break to just nab some booze. as well.
We can do that.
I was going to have a cup of tea. It's tea time for watching the documentary, and then I was like, oh, okay, this is the kind of the pre-drinks before we go out for the night. Except I forgot the pre-drinks in the other room.
Well, that's fine. You can go and do that if you.
I'll go and do that. Just give me like a second. I'll grab and come back.
We've got some guests coming at 6:45, so
cool. You're gonna vamp for just a minute.
I'll vamp for a little bit. Yeah. So I'll read out some more 2005 facts. Here we go. So in March 2005, which we're talking about right now, we've fucking hell. That's just a bunch of dead people. That's not very fun. So in March 2005, China ratified the anti-secession law aimed at preventing Taiwan from declaring independence. Now that's very important because that is an issue that continues to be hotly contested to this day. March 24th, 2 days just before Rose went out, the president of Kyrgyzstan, Askar Akayev, was deposed following mass anti-government demonstrations, and he fled the country. So there we go. That's March 2005 in politics there.
Sorry,
what else have we got?
Okay.
He's back. He's back. Good.
I've got the wireless thing in. I was in the other room. I could hear you going, oh, for fuck's sake, how do I fucking... Oh, what did he...
Well, I was like, because I opened up I've got the Wikipedia page for 2005, just for that sort of very, very purpose. And I thought I would have some fun things like, who was number one in the charts? What were the biggest grossing films? No, it's just all like China didn't want Taiwan to declare independence, and like Kyrgyzstan there was a coup, and it's all very serious stuff. It's not so much fun. Should we do some more listener correspondence about 2005? This is great from Dan Cooper. It was the first year of uni, and the network was so locked down that I couldn't download the CBC link. Thankfully, one of the university IT admins handed me a burned DVD of it after I moaned about it on the uni on the uni IRC for a whole day. I love the idea of just a librarian sort of slipping you a kind of pirate copy of Rose across a desk. That's good. This is quite nice as well. Wheelie says, I was about 9 years old, and I'm ashamed to say I missed the first 3 episodes of the revival. You were 9 years old, mate. That's not your fault. I should blame the parents. So I was genuinely the kid who saw the farting aliens in Aliens of London and World War III and became a Doctor Who fan for life. And this is it. Every episode is somebody's first episodes, or somebody's favorite episode.
Yeah, I guess we'll talk about that. The success of the more contentious scenes in comic scenes.
We've got Dylan Reese, our good friend Dylan Reese, says, my main memory is of panicking as the brand new DVD recorder my dad had purchased to record it wasn't working. We still lived in an era where if you didn't record something, you might never see it again. I don't think that's fucking true. It was repeated on BBC Three twice a week. Dylan goes on to say, I was immediately swept up in how exciting it all was, but although the episode felt a bit slight... I was immediately swept up in how exciting it all was, although the episode felt a bit slight. But any misgivings I had, which were minor, were resolved the following week. What a brilliant 13 weeks. It was a brilliant 13 weeks. God. I want to go back there. How can we all just go back there?
Yeah. Where were you? Where were you in your life, Mark? Where was young Mark?
So,
the university and a job? What was going on?
No, not yet. No, I was working at the Edinburgh City Car Pound. The Edinburgh City Car Pound. That was a miserable
the glory days.
Time. And I think I was doing karaoke with you on a Tuesday. Were we doing that at that point? Maybe soon after.
Yeah, we were.
It was around that time. It was definitely. No, it was 2005. Definitely 2005.
2005. Yeah.
So yeah, we must have been doing that. Maybe we'd started doing that, or maybe that would come later. But yeah, at that point, I think I was thinking. I was like, it's time to go to university. I've put it off for 2 years. So I think I must have been thinking around my options and stuff like that. So yes, it was kind of that, and I'm kind of going to the Edinburgh group every Monday. That was kind of my socializing, sort of hanging out with you and Derek. I think at the weekends at the South Sider, that started not long.
Yeah, it was
around that time.
Monday. It was Monday at the Canon's Gate for Doctor Who group, and then Derek and you and I used to meet for lunch on a Sunday at the South
Yeah.
Sider, which was usually it was just a burger and lager. That's what we would.
It's pretty good.
It was great.
Pretty
It
good.
was the greatest times. They were the greatest times.
Yeah, they were good. And I mean, you were at uni though. I remember
I
because
was
I
at
used
uni. I was at uni. When was it? Probably that had been kind of like maybe second or third year. Probably second year. I remember it not being an immensely taxing time. It was before, having to do final year dissertations or long essays or all that kind of stuff. So it was in that sweet spot of second year.
Yeah.
Where, I'd wasted a lot of my first year student loan on buying Eighth Doctor big finishes at the Forbidden Planet. I remember that. And yeah, it was just hanging out at the Doctor Who group and being really excited because I remember every Monday there was some sort of new revelation, some new piece of casting or the reveal of what the Doctor Who logo was going to be like, and then that would be the thing that would keep you going. But there was also other good sci-fi on at the time.
There really
Battlestar
was,
Galactica was on. People were still at the X-Files. Star Trek was getting good and then cancelled.
And then, because I remember you came round to mine to watch the last episode of Enterprise, which would have been that went out. That was 2005, wasn't it?
That was 2005. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
Was that just before Rose, or was that just after?
I've got this noted down in a diary somewhere. It's in, I think, May will be the 20th anniversary of These Are the Voyages going out of Enterprise.
Okay. So meet back here and we'll do a live stream.
We'll do a live stream. We'll do a live stream night for. But then I think because it was like June time before Sky got it in the UK.
Right. Okay. So yes, it would have been that summer. Interesting. Yeah, it was a good time. Like 2005, I think is one of my the sort of, because it was like starting uni. It was meeting all my uni friends who I'm still really close friends with today. It was like hanging out with you and Derek. It was like that Edinburgh Festival that year was amazing. Like, because I properly threw myself into it because I had nowhere to be. I'd finished my job. I didn't start uni until September, so like August was all fun all the time. And Doctor Who had just come back, and it had been a massive success. I remember meeting a friend of mine for drinks, like after Father's Day had gone out, and we met in the pub. And he was like, "Oh, did you watch Doctor Who tonight?" I was like, "Did you watch Doctor Who tonight?" And he was like, "Yeah, it was really good." And I was like, "I don't have you done as Doctor Who fan?" I said, "Oh no, there's this girl at uni who really likes it." So I said, "Sorry, two things." It's just like, yeah, it's crazy. It was such a huge success. And I don't think I watching Rose, I remember thinking that they pretty much stuck the landing. But like even then I wasn't like, oh well, this is setting the in the stall for the next 20 years.
Yeah.
Crazy.
I think every time in the next 5 years, every time we got every time there was like the end of a series and there was the prospect of another series, you were delighted.
Yeah.
And then when RTD went and it was being handed over to Stephen Moffat, you were delighted. And then somewhere around the kind of the 12, 13 year mark, you were just so glutted and complacent and took it for granted.
Yeah.
just how anti-social rot took in.
Yeah.
Which is why now we've reached a point where there's some people baying for it to be cancelled for a bit of a rest.
Yeah.
Not me. I love Doctor Who, and I'm really sad if the rumors prove to be true that we're going into a bit of a period
new
of
wilderness years. Although I don't think it'll be for long. I think it'll be, well, I don't know. I mean, everybody always forgets the Doctor Who wasn't cancelled in 1989. It's just they spent an inordinate amount of time trying to get a co-production partner. That's generally kind of what happens. And I think we're that. So yeah, maybe we are about to enter a new wilderness years, but hopefully it's a bit shorter this time round. Because I was thinking this the other day, there was a really good article on Film Stories about the sort of the state of the Star Trek franchise. And it was kind of making the point that Star Trek and, arguably to a certain extent Star Wars, and particularly James Bond, are all franchises that have kind of aged out.
Yeah.
Like, kids don't really get into Star Trek now.
Yeah.
Partly because they cancelled the sort of way in, which was Star Trek Prodigy. But yeah, I think Doctor Who is at risk of that. But I think because it was so successful in 2005, you've had a whole generation of kids that have grown up with that. It's kind of therefore kind of topped up the sort of fandom and the interest and the love for it.
Yeah.
Whereas I think that if it had gone wrong in 2005, would it? I don't know. Would it have come back, or would that have been it? I don't know.
I think obviously you can see where the creators who bring Doctor Who back were inspired in that creativity by the original version of Doctor Who. And I think you can already see how this iteration of Doctor Who inspires creatives.
Yeah.
So I perfectly think that if it goes off air for a while, even if it's an extended while, there are definitely people who have gotten big on social media or have gotten into television or writing or novels or whatever because of Doctor Who, and would find it a passion to bring it back, because so much of the original bringing it back story was to do with like fans passionate about it, keeping, as Terence Dix said, like Christians under the Colosseum, keeping the light of faith alive. So I think that would do. You are right. I mean, Star Wars, Star Trek, they don't work in the same way. They're not aimed at the same people, and like they're feeding an increasingly individual niche audience. I mean, I really like Star Trek, but there's nothing really original about, like, the most successful Star Trek is just a prequel to the original series. When Discovery attempted to do something different, it was lambasted and people really got angry with it. Doctor Who is aimed at a different crowd. I think it generates and nurtures a different kind of creativity and enthusiasm. And I think there's something to be said as well, that American and British styles of creating stuff are very, very different. And there's maybe a bit more of a personality or personal touch to British TV at its best, which Doctor Who definitely has that.
It's British television. I mean, it's very writer-led, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's always what people say, and I think that's true. And case in point with the kind of revival of Doctor Who, like Russell T Davies was brought on because he was an award-winning, acclaimed writer who happened to bloody love Doctor Who.
Yeah.
And so he was the ideal guy to kind of bring it back. And that's kind of continued. You've had Stephen Moffat, who was, again, really successful writer. Chris Chibnall, really successful writer. Whereas I think American shows are often producer-led.
Yeah. Executive-led,
Yeah, there's and maybe those producers start out as writers, like the sitcoms like Frasier and Friends and stuff like that. There's writers behind those shows who then become executive producers. I can't even remember the names now. But prestige, the sort of prestige telly era in America, that's much more like, I think, the sort of British thing is, because it's David Chase's The Sopranos, Matthew Weiner's Mad Men, even though there's a bunch of other writers on it. it's that kind of authorial voice, you know.
Yeah, I think it's so funny that RTD is he is a great writer, a great television maker. Because he's not just a writer, like he's a producer. Like
Yeah,
his
yeah,
fingerprints are
absolutely.
on everything. It's his vision, and he's had some cast iron hits. Like he is a television genius.
Yeah,
Uh, and he thought that Doctor Who, his most staunch belief is that Doctor Who is the greatest television show ever made, and it needed to come back. That is so funny that he got himself into a position of creating his own dramas, only to absolutely kick the doors down at the BBC and like just hold people to account that this old property, which was seen as an embarrassment, had to be remade. It's
yeah.
crazy. I don't think it would have been if they'd brought it back. And I know like there were a few other pitches to try and make it happen at this time. I don't think it would be as successful because it absolutely took that pig-headed, strange confidence to make it happen, to get it on
Yeah.
TV, to not stop at BBC Three or have half an hour on BBC Two of a Sunday afternoon, or to bring it back to being like a kids' CBBC production, to
And
go,
that's
the
Russell.
only
That
place it
is,
lives is fucking Saturday nights at 7 o'clock, you
yeah,
know?
that is Russell T Davis's thing. Because, um, sorry, the Dexestial Filmmaker's been in touch to confirm that 2005 was indeed the year that he made a Morpho Brain, and he was robbed by Doctor Who magazine's very own Dave Owen. But yeah, that
Happy
was
Rose
Russell
Day,
T.
Derek.
Yeah, but that was Russell T Davis, who I think he was, and he's still that now. He's pushing that thing through. The show has to be kind of front and center, because if it's in Doctor Who magazine 500 where they have the original pitch for Mark Gatiss, Gareth Roberts, and Clayton Hickman's Doctor Who 2000, and in that they talk about how they were way too timid and apologetic. And I was like, yeah, we'll do like sort of serials so we can keep the production costs down, and
Yeah.
it'll be really self-contained and quite small scale. And Russell T Davis is like, absolutely not. My Doctor Who is going to be big and loud, and it's going to be a blockbuster every week. And yes, there'll be mythology, but it kind of it doesn't matter. And we're going to build our own mythology. That's the key thing.
Yeah.
There's a really interesting thing in that original pitch document where he talks about the last of the Time Lords is their kind of mythos, their kind of X-Files conspiracy sort of arc. And actually, if you look at those 4 seasons and specials, that is absolutely the story that he's telling all the way through that series. It's the Doctor's the last of the Time Lords. What does that mean? What does it then mean when he meets another one? And then your sort of series finale rather than your season finale is he finally sort of confronts the Time Lords that he killed, essentially.
Yeah.
It is really interesting that it does kind of, so you can see why the BBC considered, is this it then? Is that the end? Like, do we not?
Yeah.
Because it's been pretty popular. Are we gonna just tank it? Because it does kind of tie everything up quite neatly.
Yeah, it does. It does. But I mean, if it was actually going to be the ending, I mean, I wasn't really aware that was ever a chat in fandom. Were you?
Sorry, what was that? Moffat said in an interview that, I mean, I don't know how serious a conversation it was, but he said there was at least one conversation about whether or not they just rest Doctor Who after David Tennant leaves.
Yeah.
Because it had been so popular, and it's like, can it go on without him, sort of thing.
Yeah. But at the time, rumor-wise, I don't recall anything.
No, I think they were really on top of that, weren't they? And it was just,
Yeah.
It was announced, I think, just before the Forest of the Dead. Oh no, sorry, Silence of the Library, wasn't it? I think it was just announced before. because you then have that great commentary on Forest of the Dead with David Tennant, Russell T Davies, and Stephen Moffat, and they're ribbing him about like casting James Nesbitt and having Jimmy Nesbitt's face coming down the time tunnel and all that kind of thing.
Yeah. So that was like, I mean, you know, after that 4th season, we have a year of specials. So, you know, I think we probably felt pretty confident of Doctor Who's longevity. You know, a new showrunner was announced 2 years before, or a year and a half before the actual exit of the lead actor at the time. I just remember being positive, and I just remember the fan reaction being that we wouldn't stand for Doctor Who ending after 4 or 5 years.
Yeah,
it had to go on.
So I've got some more memories. If you want some more memories from listeners and friends, Cy Hart says it like his initial kind of response was that it seems so fast paced that the 45 minutes whizzed past. I definitely remember feeling that, like it kind of set your head spinning a little bit. I spent the day with my partner at the time on a long walk. Both of us really excited about it, hoping it was going to be good. There was that worry, but of course it wasn't. Yeah, there was always that kind of like, and I remember all the way through that first series kind of going, oh, is this going to be the shit one? Is this going to be the one where the wheels come off? Yeah. I have a few issues with Aliens in London, but I think actually now that I'm almost 40, it's like, no, you were just being a very overly serious 19-year-old, and that's why you didn't like it. We've got, and speaking of which, Chippy T says, I recall really liking Doctor in 2005, apart from the farting aliens and poor CGI, but we had a 4x3 telly, poor sound, and a 4-year-old. I loved Christopher Eccleston, enjoyed his Northern Doctor.
I don't think it really got any better. If you had like a big fancy TV, I think it would probably be worse.
Yeah, probably. The best part was the fabulous walking shot from the flats to the TARDIS. It laid an excellent foundation. Yeah, that was the one that was all over the sort of morning shows, wasn't it? That kind of earth turning thing. Daniel Ronsley says, my first ever memory of Doctor Who was seeing Peter Cushing in Dalek Invasion Earth 2150 AD, aged 11. So it was such a surprise to see the Doctor barreling into my life as this rough and rude northern bloke from Salford in a leather jacket. The propulsiveness of Rose is what got me hooked, and by next week I was totally in love. That first series and the pairing of Chris and Billy are still so special to me because it opened up a whole new world which can be silly, exciting, emotional, funny, and smart. It hit me just at the right age. Doctor Who didn't have to be posh; he could also be cool.
That is a shock. That is a juxtaposition, isn't it? I mean, unless you're a child of like the UK Gold Saturday, Sunday mornings, maybe the most readily available Doctor Who is whenever they would quite frequently play the Peter Cushing movies
on Channel 4. Yeah, every bank holiday for that. I'm just gonna turn the light on.
And that kind of white-haired, velvet jacketed kind of guy. The next one you see is the complete opposite of that Doctor. I just think that's I love that. I would like to see a multi-Doctor story with those two Doctors, the 9th Doctor and the Cushing Doctor. I want to see that.
Who else do we have? Mega Slippers says it's impossible to be objective about being 12, living in Wales and watching New Who in 2005. It's the beginning of a vibe that I carried forward for nearly 20 years. The buzz in the media felt huge. It felt like proper event TV in the lead up. I remember very little about watching it live, but I do remember the discussions in school on Monday morning. We were unanimously in favour of the revival and were insufferable dorks about it for years to come. It's weird to think we were still setting VCRs to record. The iPlayer was still years away. And on that subject, Richie Morgan says it still doesn't feel like that long ago. But then I remember that if I was going to miss an episode, I had to tape it on a videotape. Yeah. I don't think I've got them now, but I think I still had for quite a while my VHS record, because I recorded every episode. Because there was that kind of like, oh yeah, but what if there's another missing episode situation? At least I'll have my copy of it.
I didn't think there would be a miss. Like I knew they were going to get like a home video release.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. We're taping them on VHS, and it's the first iteration of Doctor Who that didn't have a VHS, an official VHS box.
Yeah.
It went
Yeah.
straight
Man,
to
isn't it?
DVD.
Yeah. Just that
I just
unwieldy
remember that, like,
DVD box set.
yeah, well, the fucking with nothing, so much dead space inside. It didn't need to look like that, and it's obviously done up to look like a TARDIS, except the TARDIS doesn't look like that. It's just a big
No,
squat
no.
fucking. But I think like the idea of taping it and preserving those tapes, not just sticking it on like the back of a EastEnders or a Corrie that your mum was recording, but having like a specific tape VHS. It was because I think for us at the Doctor Who group and with older fan friends, having done that in the 70s and the 80s, it felt like a rite of passage to be able to, this is my show. I'm going out now to buy VHS tapes, blank tapes, and I'm going to make my own recordings. And above any other official release, these are mine.
Yeah,
Like
I think you're right.
Like it was a rite of passage. It was looking other people in the eye and going, I am also now a Doctor Who fan. I love that. Yeah. I think I may still have my VHS somewhere in a box, stuck somewhere. I don't recall getting rid of it. But like I remember, like, so it was, I had it on 3 VHS this whole season, and then kind of engineered a way of sticky taping it all together, so it was just one clump of VHS rather than 3 individual.
But then you still have to snap it off. You could just put the 3 tape sandwich in the.
No. But like, so you kind of like you would tease out the top tape, and you'd have the 2, and then you tease out the middle one if you wanted to watch. I remember 3 videos, and I could get like, there were long play ones, so it was like 5 hours if you put, like 6 hours if you put long play. And I remember thinking at the time, you know how you could do slow play, you could do long play to increase the time on how much space you had on a VHS. I was like, but does that mean there's a degrading in quality if you extend, if it's a long play?
Because you want it in the best available quality, yeah.
The best VHS quality. And I remember when I was recording it, I would always get the idents beforehand. I wanted to contextually lift it out, you know, like the play, like what was on beforehand, playing into it, and then leave it for a few moments afterwards.
Yeah,
so you kind of got a sense of the history of it, rather than just a kind of stop start.
Yeah, definitely. I think I would always. I think from the DVDs where you've got the continuity announcements, I would always record it to catch those. You know, even though who cares really, but there is a history to it, and there is a kind of there is just something about having those kind of, and now on BBC One, you know, like which is silly in a way, but
it wasn't like 20 years ago. You'd still get programs wherein at the end it would go, if you've enjoyed this, there's a Doctor Who annual is now available from all good bookshops.
Yeah.
I'm sure there was a few bits of that, or when they started doing the vanilla DVD releases, going, and now available from
because did they not start coming out while the show was still on?
Yes, it was. Yeah, that's why it was only kind of, so it was, in the end it was 4 releases. And I remember, because I must have been working in Voga, Martin's Doctor Who shop on Hume Street in Edinburgh at this time, and I remember that you could get hold of Rose and The End of the World and The Unquiet Dead before like watching The Empty Child and The Doctor Dances. Like you could catch up, and that might not be the case, but that is my recollection. And so much of this is about recollection and feeling.
Well, it is. But I mean, you know, comedians like Peter Kay made a whole routine. I made a whole routine. I mean, there were several. I made a whole career out of just remembering stuff.
Yeah.
But I think just before we bring in the guests and sort of build up to Rose, we should talk about the build up, which was all the clips, mastermind. You know, was it a Doctor Who special? of Master? No, it wasn't, was it? Or was it?
Eccleston
It
was
was.
on it. I can't remember if it was a Doctor Who special.
I think it was just somebody had Doctor Who as a specialist subject
Yeah.
and won, and he handed the trophy to them. I think, wasn't it?
Can't remember.
But yeah, or maybe they did. And he was on Blue Peter as well.
Yeah.
Like he did, he did not shy away from doing the promotion. Now there's a certain energy that quickly became like explained. Like was it the Sunday after Rose when the papers broke that he was leaving?
Was it? I think
Or
it
was it the
was.
week later?
It was a week later because I think that scene at the end of the world, where they're standing in the middle of a Cardiff street talking about his planet being dead and let's go for chips. I think that cemented him as the Doctor, and this show as a hit. And then very soon after that, and I think it was just before the Unquiet Dead, it was announced, or it was leaked into the papers that he was leaving. And I remember feeling gutted. Like just like, oh, firstly, I thought that was the end of Doctor Who.
Yeah.
But I was like, I want more of him and that. But a lot of that
So
series
yeah,
had hanging over at him.
So I think it was the Thursday, the 31st of March.
Oh, really?
So I think, if I remember this rightly, because I remember walking into work and seeing it so this was on the BBC website. So that would have been, I think, because obviously it was in the tabloids first, and then they rushed out a statement, which obviously broke, was the straw that broke the camel's back in terms of Eccleston. But yeah, so this news story was last updated on the 31st of March, the Thursday.
Right.
So yeah, so even before End of the World. But yeah, but that's it though. I think watching the End of the World, there was a kind of like, man, like this is we've only gotten for 10 more weeks, 11 more weeks.
Yeah. I just felt gutted.
Yeah.
And by that point, as was because I watched all these episodes with my mum. And she thought he was great as well. And she was gutted. Like a person who hadn't really bothered her arse about Doctor Who her entire life.
Yeah.
Other than vague memories of the Daleks when she was a child. She was, after 2 episodes, upset that guy was leaving.
Yeah. I mean, there was... I knew a few people that only started watching Doctor Who because of Chris Eccleston. There was a woman I worked with at the time, and we ended up watching The Unquiet Dead together at work. And it was like, she was like, well, I'm not going to watch it after him. After Chris Eccleston's gone, it won't be the same. I say, it's only week 3. And this is like how passionate people were about, Chris Eccleston as the Doctor, and already going, well, the next guy is going to be shite.
Yeah.
And he wasn't. And obviously the show went to even greater heights, but there was a real worry, I think. Like, oh man, really? Like, we've just got this show back, and already we're going to get a new Doctor on the way. There
was a real sense that everybody, a real cheerleading spirit from fans all the way to non-fans. They just wanted it to be good. And when it was good, that delighted them.
And it is interesting to rewatch those interviews with Chris Eccleston. Like, knowing what you know now, knowing about the sort of struggles with sort of anorexia, and knowing about we don't know a lot about, like, in terms of detail. I mean, you can read between the lines on a lot of stuff. But knowing that, and kind of that energy isn't just him being the serious northern actor Christopher Eccleston. It is, he's tired and he's had a bad experience on it, and he's fulfilling his contractual obligation.
Because he believes in the show, and he wasn't going to leave anyone in the shit.
And that's it. He believes in the show, and he believes in the character. And I think also it's out of a kind of... I was reading a bit of Billy Piper's autobiography this afternoon, just on on the kind of Rose stuff, and like she tells a story about he phoned her up before they'd even started filming or like read-throughs or anything to kind of talk about like we need to be like on the same page and like work as a team and all this kind of thing. So I think it's also like out of respect for her as well, so that she's not kind of carrying the can just because he's left the show. So, but it is interesting. I was saying to you this afternoon, I watched that BBC Breakfast interview, which is on the Blu-rays and DVD, where it's the full sort of like 11-minute like interview without that hasn't been kind of cut up, because you get those little pauses where it's and there's a weird vibe in that interview, and it's not just Eccleston kind of being a bit underpowered. It's this kind of like Doctor Who was shite, wasn't it? Wasn't Doctor Who fucking shite, mate? Why are you bringing it back now? There's like that kind of weird energy to it. But I think the thing that comes across most is you can really draw a line between that interview and the stuff that we know now. So like there's things like Eccleston talks about all the people that worked on the show. And he then sort of has this kind of clarifier where he says brilliant people on a crew level. And then he sort of talks about all the great people he's worked with, and he says something like along the lines of like, not the show-offs, the people that you'll see at this launch tonight. I mean, cameramen and lighting engineers and things like that. And you do really get a sense of that. Yeah, that like looking back on it, it's like, yeah, it's very interesting that he has to clarify that. Like he's like, yeah, I'll promote your show. And I'll say Russell T Davies is what interested me in the show because that is what interested me in the show. But beyond that, like, I'm not going to be sort of blowing smoke up your ass.
Yeah, which he gets away with because that's Christopher Eccleston as a person. It is an exercise in gentlemanly class to not flounce off or to scupper it before it's even started. But he obviously had a bad experience. My understanding is it started pretty much from day one because Block 1 was so fraught. Rose, The End of the World. Sorry, not The End of the World, sorry. Aliens of London, World War III. And then before any reparation can be done to that relationship between writer and star, in comes John Barrowman. Makes it worse, apparently. It's not funny. It deeply hurt a man, but like there's a kind of black comedy to it.
There is. I mean, it is really interesting, all that stuff about the first that first block where they did Rose, Aliens in London, World War III. They didn't know. Like Russell T Davies talks about that in Toby Haydock's podcast. It's like, yeah, we thought we knew what we were doing. Like, we'd all made TV shows before. We'd all worked on TV shows before. But they kind of very quickly got out of their depth. And he's very sort of keen not to kind of, what does he say? Something anecdotize it and sort of blow it out of proportion. Because then he's saying, days are always like that.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I don't know if they are. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we're doing a little nostalgia show. And what is a nostalgia show without Stuart McConey? Stuart McConey, he sees all, he knows all. We don't have Stuart McConey, but what we do have is Mr. Lee McMenemy off of the Polis box. And I'm going to welcome him onto the stage right now. Hello, Lee.
Happy anniversary, Lash lads.
Happy anniversary to you too.
20 glorious years. Well, apart from the times when it wasn't on television. 17 3/4 glorious years. What a time to be alive. How are you?
Very well. How are you?
I'm not bad. Not bad at all.
Excellent. What are your memories of 2005, Lee?
God, 2005. Well, this time, 20 years ago, I was nothing but a slip of a lad, bouncing expectantly on my father's knee, waiting for Doctor Who to come on the telly. I mean, it was 26 then, but I was only 10 stone, so it's fine, But yeah, much like tonight, I've got slightly clammy hands because it's a roasting room in here. But that kind of nervous expectancy of Doctor Who coming back and having that sort of kind of dual fan thing of going on. I've been really excited. Here it comes. It's been away far too long. And on the other hand, please don't be shit. Please don't be shit. Please be good. So yeah,
does it feel better going in to an episode now that we've had 20 years of deciding whether it was shit or not?
I don't know. Some of the people we speak to are still on the fence. I'm not going to name names.
We should probably say we want this to be celebratory. That's why we're kind of it's a pure roll in the filth of nostalgia. That's
I think
all fears dissipated after 45 minutes of those. So it was fine.
Well, as I said to Ben the other day, I think I want this to be. I think we're allowed to talk about the negatives of the episode, but I don't want us to use the warm nostalgic buzz for Rose as a stick to beat. Can you use a warm nostalgic buzz as a stick? I don't know, but we don't want to use it as a stick to beat the RTD2 era with, because come on.
Different times. Do you know what? I'm going to keep my powder dry for the commentary, but I don't think there's going to be much negativity from these quarters.
Excellent. Well, now we're doing a nostalgia show, right? And what is a nostalgia show without Andrew Collins? Andrew Collins, he's always got an observation on the culture. We don't have Andrew Collins, but who we do have is Mr. J.R. Southall. So I'm going to welcome him to the stage right now. Hello, J.R. Southall.
Who's Andrew Collins?
He's on all the iHeart thingy shows, you know.
It's fine. JR's a thinking man, Stuart McConey, so that's all right.
JR Southall, how are you? You all right?
Are you actually on now?
We're on right now. Do you need a minute?
Okay. Fair enough. I didn't realise that. Hang on.
Put it away.
Yeah, come on, Leslie Grantham.
No, I was fully expecting for us to just be having a sort of preamble chat before you.
This is the preamble chat, but it's live.
All right, fair enough.
JR, you must have only been about, I don't know, just a child when Rose went out for the first time. What are your memories of 2005?
I can remember being in a pram and being wheeled about the back streets of Northampton in Yorkshire near Sheffield. What can I remember about 2000? Do you mean what can I remember about the year 2000?
Yeah, no, I mean, if you want, but no, the build up to Rose, the excitement, the apprehension, perhaps.
Have you ever told you the story about hearing the news that Doctor Who was coming back? Because I've heard this story in other places, but I might as well repeat it here. Because this is kind of a slightly odd thing, but I was on a night shift at the time, and the way the news worked was that they'd play a pre-recorded news bulletin on the hour and then a shorter version of it on the half hour all through the night. And then at 5 a.m., the new cycle of news would begin, and you'd get the first edition of the pre-record for the morning at 5 a.m. And I finished work at our finishing time was 5:06 a.m. So the last thing we heard before we went home was the 5 o'clock news bulletin. And that was the first news bulletin that had the Doctor Who's coming back, and Russell T Davies is doing it. So we must have been amongst the first people in the country to hear that just before I was due to go home and try to go to bed and get some sleep. But yes, so I was excited. I think I had spent the previous 15 years expecting it to come back at some point. I don't think I had that feeling that a lot of fans had that it was gone. Because I kind of lost interest in Doctor Who during the Wilderness years, but I always sort of retained a certain amount of anything that was sort of Doctor Who in the news would pique my interest. And I always kept seeing in the magazine, for example, before I stopped buying it, one company after another, one sort of producer after another, wanting to bring the Doctor Who back in discussions with the BBC, none of which was consistent with a corporation that wanted to get rid of Doctor Who, right? and none of which was consistent with a sort of television industry that didn't want to make Doctor Who. So I think I just kind of spent the entire 15 years assuming that at some point it would come back. And even when the TV movie didn't work, I just thought, okay, it's probably tied up in rights now for a couple of years, but sooner or later that won't be an issue anymore. And in Britain, you'll find somebody else who wants to bring it back. So when I heard the news, I wasn't surprised remotely, even though I hadn't been sort of buying the magazine for most of the Wilderness years. I just kind of like, oh, right. Well, 15 fucking years, about fucking time.
I don't think there ever wasn't an appetite in the TV industry for it not to come back, though.
Yeah, exactly.
Always seemed to be somebody trying to resurrect it every couple of years or so to varying degrees of success.
Yeah, I mean, this is what I was saying earlier on. It was just like, everybody says Doctor Who was cancelled in 1989. It wasn't. It was,
no.
We need somebody else to make it because the BBC kind of can't make it in the way that it possibly should have been. But interestingly, that's exactly what happens.
Disney, very much bringing Disney
exactly.
in for the money now, right? That's the situation.
Yeah, that's exactly it. But obviously, they got some funding from CBC for the first couple of series, or was it just the first series? I can't remember now.
I think this was the first one.
So, a fact I maybe did know and then sort of filed in the back of my head, but then rediscovered this week was that apparently when they found out Christopher Eccleston was the lead, they were like, oh, can we dub him with a Canadian actor? And I don't mean French Quebec. I mean like a well-spoken, Canadian actor, because they felt that Canadians wouldn't be able to understand the Salford accent. And Russell T Davies, to his credit, was like, absolutely not. Are you fucking insane? Like, I'm not going to do that to our lead actor. No.
I don't know, for all that they didn't, that line, every planet has a north, would have still worked beautifully in the United States.
Very true. Very true.
That's mad. Is that real?
Russell T Davies said it, and I think it's the Wilderness Years documentary on. I don't know if it's on any of the Blu-rays now, but it is on the special edition Green Death DVD that came out.
I think it was in the magazine at some point as well. It was mentioned after the fact, but not very long after the fact. Because immediately after the first series went out, there was a sort of round of interviews from the people who'd made it, sort of wrapping things up, wasn't there? And I'm pretty sure I remember reading it even as far back as then.
Quite possibly then, yeah. Well, we're almost at 7:00. Now, before we do, we've got one last bit of listener correspondence that I've been saving to kind of set us off on a good place as Ben gets his cork ready. So Rassilon's Trousers has been in touch to say that about Rose. The day I'd been waiting for so long, new Doctor Who, and I missed it. I was in the early stages of a new relationship, and she invited me to a friend's wedding reception. I didn't have the confidence at that stage to turn down a date to stay in and watch Doctor Who instead. Anyway, we've been married for years now, have 2 kids that both love Doctor Who, and we're going to meet Sylvester McCoy next month. I think it was the right decision. Lovely. What a lovely thing. What a lovely thing.
That is exactly the positivity that I want to get into this viewing with. So I'm gonna pop the cork just now.
Pop the cork, go for it.
And it was popping his cork on set. They got John Barrett. No, I'm not going to do it tonight. No, not tonight.
Hey!
Happy Rose Day, everybody.
Well, I'm drinking a pint of Rosebud IPA.
Nice.
So there we go. So, suitably.
Well, I've got a cup of tea, but I'll be having a pint of John Smith's at some point, probably after we finish recording, in honour of, David Tennant. My favourite.
Having some Prosecco here, but I had a couple of fizzy rosés there just when we were filling the hour. Rosé to drink a toast to this evening's heroine, Jackie Tyler.
Just for a second there, I thought heroin was your drink of choice and rosé.
I was just getting all smacked up and ready for 7:00.
Listen that belt off your arm, and here we go.
I've already told JR won't care. I've already told Mark this, but there's an interesting little Edinburgh link that I'll let Lee know when we get to it in Rose.
I
yes,
think I know
yeah,
where
this
you're
is
going
good.
with
This
this.
is good.
Oh, do you? Right.
I think I know what you're referring to, but we'll get to that.
Okay,
Hang
excellent.
on.
All right, well, I'm going to put the
7
link
o'clock.
in the chat for anybody that wants to quickly access it.
Actually, how
For
are we doing this,
Rose?
Mark? Are you putting it up on screen, or do I have to get
No,
my
we're not.
iPad ready?
Oh, sorry, I meant to say, yeah. If you've got, have you got access to it? You've got access to it, right? I'll put the
What are
link
we
in the
watching
chat.
first?
Bring it up,
Rose or A New Dimension?
Well, we've done A New Dimension. Keep
Oh, you've
up.
done A New Dimension.
Yeah. So we're going to do Rose because we
Okay,
wanted
I've
to
got
bring
it.
out the big guns for Rose. A New Dimension. Ben and I can just do that. So yes.
Okay,
So whenever you're ready, and I'll do a 3, 2, 1.
Okay,
All right.
I've got mine now. There was a few technical incidents for A New Dimension. Don't worry, they've been corrected. So if you give us the 3, 2, 1, go, then Mark, when you're ready.
Is everyone ready?
Yep.
I'm ready.
All right. Lovely. Okay, gentlemen. In 3, 2, 1. Let's make magic.
Juicy. Right in. Title sequence. There you go.
Sorry.
Go on. No, it's all right.
Well, no, I think it's always what did we think of this title sequence when we first saw it? Like the big sort of goofy cartoon lettering and the sort of time tunnel and the logo that doesn't quite fit in the circular sort of tunnel.
Do you know what? I liked everything. And the reason I liked everything is partly because I'd kind of not been a Doctor Who fan through the wilderness years. So I didn't have this is the way I want Doctor Who to be. And if it's not like that, I'm not going to enjoy it. I think I took everything on face value. So the title sequence, the music, the logo, everything. I was like, oh, is that what they're doing? Fine.
Yeah.
It's their choice.
I completely misremembered it because I thought there was a cold open.
Yeah, I thought that as well, rewatching it.
Crashed in after the TARDIS was revealed.
But then, of course, I suppose it didn't.
Yeah. The memory cheats, Mark.
It does. It does.
I like this montage. Firstly, this montage establishes it's a completely different show.
Yeah.
It's fast. There's loads of cuts. It's also logistically, it's on location in London, on location in Cardiff, in a studio. There's so many different elements to it, just a way that you would never have gotten in classic Doctor Who.
Yeah.
All that footage, all that what they call coverage, where you're showing the same things from lots of different angles, and you've got lots of cutaways to different things, and you've got the montage here. You've got Mickey doing the pizza thing later on, where you get a variety of different angles on that. The bit where Rose goes into the TARDIS, where you get to see that from about 3 or 4 different camera angles. All of these things take time to set up. And I think, A, they're brilliant, and they make this episode what it is. I think without all of that, this episode might have fell rather more flat than it does. And B, they're what gets Keith Boak the sack, basically, aren't they? Because these are the things that are taking all the time. And I think this episode absolutely needs them. And I don't think it's unprofessional of him to do them, but I think they should have scheduled around it and said, right, this first episode, let's take 5 weeks on this opening episode to make sure we get it right. And then after that, we can go to 3 weeks per episode.
Yeah.
But take the time on the first episode to iron out the kinks and make sure everything's right.
Well, what's interesting is, though, the whole point of doing this block with Aliens in London World War III was, Russell Davis says, because it was all London locations, Cardiff locations, so we'll get them all in one, and we don't have to kind of be going back and forth to London. And he talks in confidential about it. Well, yeah, well, that's it. And so he should have thought, actually, you need the kind of extra time, because he makes a big deal of the fact they're on location in a way that the classic series never was. Is sort of less studio bound, and he's absolutely right. But it's like you say, JR, it's like they should have built in more time for the kind of location stuff to make it.
But Julie Gardner said in an interview they didn't really have the infrastructure in place. They were kind of working blind. And when you think about, the logistical challenges they had in making this and how rushed it was and how much up against it, but it's turned out pretty well.
Yeah, definitely.
So this is So this didn't happen apart from like BBC London. But this is the point where you get a sound bleed from the of Graham Norton from the Strictly Come Dancing studio.
Oh no, it happened
we didn't
everywhere.
experience it in Scotland.
Not in Scotland, yeah, except for viewers in Scotland.
And I've actually never seen this scene with that with Graham Norton butting in. And it's on YouTube. You can see it, and there's a really funny
because it was a
moment
hot mic, wasn't it?
Yeah,
that's what it was. Yeah,
well, it's not just Graham Norton. You hear applause from the audience. So there's when Rose first comes in and switches on the light, there is a corresponding hooray from the audience, which makes it sound like there's like a surprise party waiting for her.
Rose was filmed in front of a live studio audience.
Can we also just,
it was perfect timing.
JR, just before you, can we raise a toast? This Auton is performed by Alan Ruskell, who is the first 21st century Doctor Who monster performer on screen.
Hey,
nice
one, Alan Ruskell.
Thanks for the Autons.
The Christopher Eccleston of Doctor Who monster actors. Because he too refused to come back, didn't he, Ben?
Yeah, I sent Mark an interview from a Doctor Who magazine when Rose turned 10, asking Alan Ruskell why he didn't come back as a creature performer for series 2, 3, 4. And he said he was just sick of the lack of coordination and the run-ins that he had with assistant directors and the lack of respect that he said was rife on the set.
Lack of respect? Was he left inside an autumn? Was he left inside an autumn costume all lunch? Is that what it was?
I was going to send this to Mikey Smith because he said one of the last straws was that he was caught inside the android from Bad Wolf. And when he was in there, an extra came over and had his photograph taken leaning on the android. And he was just like, they knew I was in there. And they just treated me like an object, and so I was like, "That's the end of it."
Oh,
so
we've talked all over. He does come back.
For Waters of Mars, yeah, but you know, he was another victim of what presumably was a bit of a toxic or hectic creation period for Doctor Who.
Yeah, we've talked all over Eccleston's first entrance, the Run, which is amazing.
It's understated, which is great.
It's such a good introduction for the Doctor as well. Just kind of like I love those. Just generally, I love Doctor Who episodes where, and I feel like this may be more of a modern thing, but where the Doctor's already kind of
involved in
about doing something, and you kind of come a bit late. But this was the first bit of dialogue we heard, wasn't it? They kind of
there we go.
And the Doctor, what's your name? Bit. It was on that teaser trailer. Afterwards, like the Vicar of Dibley New Year's Day special or something equally innocuous. And it was just the TARDIS sort of materializing in the powerless state. And then you just had that bit of dialogue between the Doctor and Rose. And I remember thinking, oh, this sounds good. I think this is going to be good.
I don't think there's anything really about it that doesn't work. Even there's a couple of bits towards the end that are a bit kind of a little bit weaker. The bit where he's talking to the Nestine consciousness, and it's like, it's a one-sided conversation. I'm not sure that's fantastic, and obviously the anti-plastic is a bit of a sort of
we'll come to that.
But I don't think there's anything really about the episode that doesn't.
Oh, here we go. So the Department Store Blaze.
Yeah, so I found this out the other day that the footage that they're using to show Hendrix being ablaze is stock footage from BBC News, as was then BBC News 24, of the fire in December 2002, which burned down the Gilded Balloon Comedy Club in Edinburgh.
That's the Cowgate fire, yeah.
It is, it is.
It just goes to show how committed the production team were in grounding this in reality, because they went to the effort of torching a World Heritage Site. You don't get that in Ant and Deck Saturday Night Takeaway, do you?
But I remember when that fire happened, and I and a mate drove into town to kind of stand around and watch it happening. So I was present for some Doctor Who filming by having watched that fire.
So this scene
Not
here,
sure that counts.
this scene where Mickey and Rose and Jackie are all kind of talking about the sort of aftermath of the explosion. I don't think I really appreciated it at the time, but rewatching it last night, it's like Doctor Who never used to do this.
Yeah.
And I don't just mean the kind of everyday like reality of it. I mean just like an actual kind of just sit down aftermath of like a big thing. We all talk about how Rose is like really fast paced and really quick and it moves at 100 miles an hour, and it kind of does. But it does have these like little moments of just like pause and calm for characters to kind of interact with each other and kind of catch up on like what's happening with the story and things like that. It's
You mean it doesn't spend
well paced?
49% of its running time with people talking to each other in a flat?
That comes later.
I love the way that Mickey's described in the shooting script for this is 22, cheeky, laddish, a good catch. Not anymore. Not anymore.
Did any of you watch Coronation Street, especially more or less around this time?
No. Well, maybe actually. I might have been watching it, actually, because it was on at work often.
Oh, really? Because Coronation Street was quite camp. Not like in-your-face camp, but there was something a bit silly and a bit cartoonish about it. And I don't know if it's still the same now, but I used to see it a fair bit back then. I didn't used to watch it, but we used to have it on in the house, and so often it would be on when I was in the room. And this catches... So a lot of people don't like the silliness of this, or sometimes the sort of jokey and the childishness of this. The bit where Eccleston's flicking through the magazine, or the bit where Mickey does the pizza thing, or the farting, burping wheelie bin, whatever. All of those things seemed fine, and they didn't seem like they were... Obviously, they were the sort of silly, cartoony, child-friendly sci-fi versions thereof, but they didn't seem a million miles away to me, to the sort of tone that you got in Coronation Street, and even in Hollyoaks. Hollyoaks is a more sort of teen-friendly version of it, but again, it's slightly camp, slightly colourful, slightly cartoonish.
But then I suppose that was also the stick that they used to beat, like for people that didn't like it used to beat it with, wasn't it? It was just like, oh, it's like a soap. It's too soapy because they're spending too much time in like, flats and stuff like that. But that's the whole point. Like it's seeing like this scene where like Jackie flirts with the Doctor. It's like you're seeing the Doctor in kind of really just like everyday setting.
Remember the laugh, the huge laugh that got that joke when that Sunday after at the Cannon's Gate.
Yeah,
it's good. The crux of the whole episode though, because it's all through Rose's eyes, so it has to be domestic. It has to be grounded in a flat for the majority of its running time.
It does.
Otherwise, it wouldn't work.
Yeah, it does for the 20th century. Kind of what something like Spearhead from Space did from the 1970s. So Spearhead from Space takes a setting and says, right, this is going to be the home of Doctor Who for the next few years. And it colours in the background of that setting. So you get to see the Seeleys at home, for example, in Spearhead from Space. And you get to see, him going about his poaching business or whatever. But you get to see a little bit of the countryside, enough to... Yeah, this is... I don't know why people were against this. It's fun.
Also, the gag "give a man a plastic hand" is utterly filthy.
It's because Doctor Who fans are joyless husks, JR. That's why they do it. Joyless husks.
But I didn't mind
that scene, that little cutaway there of Jackie turning on her hairdryer was the very last thing to be filmed for Rose, apparently, because it suddenly occurred to them the logic of, if they're smashing up the front room, what is somebody who's in the next room? What are they doing? Why are they not reacting? Why can't they hear what's going on?
And what was the very first thing they filmed for Rose, Ben?
It was on Tuesday, the 20th of July, 2004.
Mate. It was Henrik's on Fire in Edinburgh.
Of course. So that means that this must be the longest production time for any given episode of Doctor Who.
When did the Golden Balloon burn down?
December 2002.
Yeah. So before Doctor Who even got brought back, like
Before
even
there
they
was
didn't
even a
announce it,
scream coming from
they were
any
already
shelters.
working on it. Yeah.
And think of the cost of rebuilding all of that part of Edinburgh. You can tell Phil Collinson had his hands in the budget, can't you?
This bit
I don't-
is the reshoot, isn't it? Eros Lynn does this, doesn't he?
Yes, he does. Yeah. So they shot it originally, and RTD and Eccleston weren't happy with how it was written and done, so it was remounted as part of the Aliens of London World War III bulk of the shoot.
Oh no, even later than that, wasn't it? When they were doing End of the World. I think,
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think so. Because when the edit came in, it was running at less than 40 minutes. And so apparently they added this scene altogether. This scene wasn't even in. That's how I understand it.
No, a version of this was in the when they were coming down the stairs. That was a lift and a complete ad because it was underrunning as well.
Yeah.
Or there's an elongation, perhaps.
Yeah.
Because I know there is an element where they walk out of Cardiff and into a London housing estate.
I mean, it is all in the shooting script, which I've got here.
Oh, really?
But there might be little new. But I think it's probably a mix of both. It's probably they weren't happy with how it.
Yeah, it was underrunning. There's next to no material that was cut from this because everything they filmed eventually made it in.
I wonder then if by cutting the speech because Eccleston and Davies weren't happy with it, they were underrunning, so they went, well, we'll just reshoot the scene. Then.
Yeah, maybe.
I would make you both right.
Yeah. But this bit coming up, this is my favourite part of the episode, and it's not because of the speech. You've got kind of the fading summer light. You've got the TARDIS just idling in the background there, not being the centre of the focus. It's a very sort of quiet, still point in amongst all the noise and chaos.
Yeah.
It's just lovely.
There's a feeling that this is like you're going home after being out playing with your mates and it's time for bed in the summer months.
But this was the clip they used everywhere to promote the show, which is interesting that they chose this rather than, like a big tentpole moment like, the Nestine consciousness or anything like that. And I think it's because it is the whole point of this version of Doctor Who was that it's Russell T Davis's Doctor Who. It's got proper writing and proper characterization and emotion, and this is the clip we choose to kind of signpost that to an audience. It's not your weird uncle's Doctor Who. This is something new.
I feel like there's a couple of bits in that speech that don't feel quite true, though. Like he says, we're turning, the Earth is turning, and then he describes it as falling, like in the very next sentence. It's like, well, what is it, Doctor? Is it turning or is it falling? But things like that.
I don't think the series would have been as successful as it was if Rose was suddenly like an arch pedant. It's just like, just a moment ago, you said turning rather, and we're saying falling now. I mean, it's just.
But it's about. Does it sound like somebody's written that on a piece of paper for somebody to read, or does it sound like somebody was having that thought? Because if somebody was having that thought, they'd either be thinking turning, or they'd be thinking falling. But they wouldn't be thinking turning and falling.
He's a doctor. His mind goes at 100 miles an hour.
Well, maybe, but it's just that when it goes from turning to falling sounds to me like, oh, that's somebody typing.
I tell you what, Noel Clark saying, "Hey, there's my woman," kit off, aged very badly.
Well, not as badly as "Don't read my emails." That's timely.
Look at the computer. Look at that.
Yeah.
That website's still going, still in existence. I checked earlier on.
Did you really?
Yeah, because a lot of those the unit website is still up, I think, as well.
Yeah.
Although actually, no, they had to take it down, didn't they? Because it was, they could still get it on the Wayback Machine, but they had to take it down because the whole you're using the United Nations copyright without.
I might be misremembering, but I think it was used in EastEnders the all night as well. Or it looked very, very similar to the Searchwise website. Maybe that's just a Doctor Who fan having fun.
Do you remember?
Come across Clive's website featuring Brent Spiner from Star Trek.
Do you remember? And it's mad considering that we just had earlier in the night a documentary in which all the the living doctors were interviewed. But I remember distinctly that this whole scene with Clive, people were annoyed that there weren't any past doctors in it.
So you
And
can't
it's
do
like,
that.
Mark, just, can I
as
pause you
if-
for a second?
Yes.
Mark, note the color of the bin and how the color of the bin will change over the next. It will go from a green bin to a brown bin to a green bin.
But as if this scene, the scene with Clive would be any better if it's
I
like.
can't hear anything Mark's saying now because I'm just looking for the bin.
But yeah, Colin Baker on the grassy knoll. Come on, don't be ridiculous.
Oh, come on. We know it's Penelope Keith.
I mean, I know this isn't part of the Doctor Who commentary, but did you hear what Lawrence Fox retweeted about the grassy knoll?
Oh, Christ, I can only imagine. What
It
did
wasn't
he-
the Penelope
what
Keith
was it?
thing.
Yeah, the Penelope Keith thing.
Yeah.
One of these fake news websites, one of these humorous, satirical news websites, put up a thing about the
Do you think
JFK killing, and then down the page it says, and so we've come to the conclusion that the actual killer of JFK was Penelope Keith from To the Manor Born. And Lawrence Fox only got as far as the headline, retweeted it, and said, "Have you guys seen this?" And they all.
But speaking of internet weirdos, Clive is a character that I think would be, because he's a family man. He's got a shed, but it's like a man cave kind of thing. It's a hobby. It's the weird hobby that his wife tolerates. I think
It's
like
us
now,
sitting in here doing this.
well, exactly. That's exactly right. But I think
And
now
look at
you
this
know this kind of
photoshopping.
mad conspiracy theorist in a shed has a very different kind of energy, doesn't it? But yeah, those
Look at the
photos are
photoshopping.
terrible.
Yeah.
Should have got Jackson.
My
to do the-
favorite. So the commentary from this, from RTD and Julie Gardner, Phil Collinson, is that when so you see this JFK picture, you see the picture of him dockside with a family before they board the Titanic, and then there's a kind of engraving or an etching of him standing on the beach
Yeah.
on the day Krakatoa explodes. Apparently, the original one, the proposition was to have like kind of 3 tribal people just hanging around beside the Doctor as well, and it was
Yikes.
vetoed. Like, so that dead space, that blank space, apparently should have had like just 3 tribal folks just sitting down, and they took one look at that picture of Arnold Rimmer, and I just like no. I like how this is like he could be such a weirdo, but Mark Benton gives it a gravitas, and it's
He's
written
great.
Yeah.
in such a way that instead of it being the
Yeah, that
joke
bin's
that it
grey
is about
now.
it, so that's a grey bin. It was a green bin that was placed out. That is a grey bin.
With a blue lid. So it's you
Yeah.
know, it is a recycling bin.
But it doesn't have a blue lid there. That shot.
Do you think 20 years on, it's finally time to forgive the burping bin?
I loved it from the start.
Yeah.
So
Never had a problem with
I always thought it was written in the script, but it's not. So basically it's Keith Boak that did it. So basically what in this script the lid just clamps down
Right.
on Mickey. And then when they shot it, he was like, "Oh, wouldn't it be if the bin lid comes back up?" And then in the edit, Russell T Davies was like, "Marvelous! Stick a burping sound effect on that."
And why not? Do you know
Oh,
what?
yeah.
People are like, "Oh, bins don't burp. They don't fucking eat people either."
Yeah, I think I was a bit like, oh, that was a bit silly, but fair enough.
You
But
move
yeah,
on.
the sort of the fervor of the kind of, because I thought this scene was really like, in terms of like, it's an Auton story that is utilizing other plastics that aren't just shot window dummies.
Yeah.
I thought it was like quite a fun idea.
I've just been reading the Rose novelization by RTD, and one of my favorite bits in it, which I don't know if is good or bad, is that the reason that Clive is so obsessive in his little shed is because his dad was a British soldier that was killed at Totter's Lane in remembrance of the Daleks, and that's why he's so passionate about finding the Doctor.
Yeah, there is that. There's also
See, I
that
don't
weird...
know why we couldn't have had that in the dialogue in March 2005. Come on.
But there's also that bit in this scene in the novel where it's like, and then it's, you know, then they do have past and future Doctors, like in the photos. And then there's that bit where, and I know what he's doing, but it's that thing of like where you take the language of the sort of racist internet weirdos, and he goes, oh, and then there was a picture of a woman wearing a hijab in a wheelchair, and that was also the Doctor. And you're like, Russell, I know what you're trying to do, but it is coming across a bit like, oh, what, one-armed black lesbians taking my jobs? You know what I mean? Like, it's just a bit, it's iffy.
Right, so you've got to change the subject to something a little bit less contentious, i.e. Noel Clarke.
Finally, we're on safe ground.
But you've got him here all plasticed up as Mickey.
Yeah.
And everybody here, the fan outcry here was, oh, how come she can't tell? Well, A, she's not expecting to be anything amiss. So, yeah, sure, if she looked at him, she'd probably go, something a bit weird about you. But if you're not expecting something to be amiss, why would you look at something like that and go, oh, clearly he's turned into a plastic Auton? But then the other thing is, and the thing that, like, was more important to me was, well, in Spirit from Space, when the replicas turn up, they've all got this sort of plastic sheen on them.
Yeah, they're all just
exactly
sweaty
like Mickey
lads.
does here.
Yeah.
And nobody complains about them not noticing that.
I mean, but it's also that she's just not that into him. She's not really paying attention.
I do love how Russell writes Doctor introductions, and sort of like in this episode, like it's the hand where like he just kind of comes out of nowhere and grabs Rose, and then there's the kind of waiter, and you're like, that doesn't look like a waiter. Is that the Doctor? And then it's like, yes, it is, and he sort of fires the cork into his head. Like he knows how to give the Doctor like really good entrances, I think.
There's some great bits as well. The man screams rather than the woman.
Everybody's just sitting around and not doing a thing about it.
I wonder if that's in the script or if that's another Keith Boak.
Yeah.
Just the idea that a man can remove another man's head in a crowded restaurant. They were just like, oh, that's a bit off, isn't it? I'm not going to get up and do anything about it until somebody smashes the fire alarm.
Well, it's still
the moment you have other people reacting means that you give yourself more camera shots and more coverage.
Yeah.
You got to pay people to emote, and it's like when Richard and Lady Painfort show up in the coffee house, and people are seeing them appearing out of nowhere in the center, and they're just sitting and getting on with their scone and coffee.
Oh, here you go, though. This bit's just brilliant.
Yeah.
And again, this is all about the coverage. This is all about cutting between the camera angles to keep the audience.
Well, these are spoke things as well, aren't they? Because the whole circling the TARDIS thing when she comes out was his idea.
Yeah.
It's a tradition that carries on to this day.
Brilliant. At the time when they said, "Oh, Keith Boak's the director who's bringing Doctor Who back," I was like, "Okay." So I went and sought out. I mean, as much as you could back then, what other things he'd done recently, and the other stuff that he'd been doing was just brilliant. Yeah. He did an episode of, I think it was like they did a mini series of Doctors set 100 years ago or something like that, and one of them involved like a crash outside the hospital, like a milk float crashes outside the hospital, and the episode is about the sort of aftermath of this crash. And it's like fantastic stuff, really, on a really limited budget. You can see why they used him to bring it back.
Well, because they originally wanted somebody big name, didn't they? They
Edgar
wanted
Wright
Edgar Wright,
was asked.
And it was like, no, I'm not touching that, mate. And they sort of give it to Keith Boak, who I think sort of rather gamely takes it on. And I think, for whatever, flaming sofas and whatever, I think there is some really good directorial flourishes in this.
Yeah, I
that
think it's
TARDIS scene in particular, I think it is great.
What did we
think of the TARDIS? Not the scene, but the actual interior when we first saw it.
Again, for me, it was
I remember thinking,
that's the choice they've made. Happy to go along with it. Sorry,
it's grimy and dirty and it's cobbled together.
Because I like,
but no, it needs to be like this.
True.
Lived in.
This looks lived in without being lived in, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And the new one at the moment just looks so unlived in. It couldn't look further from being lived in, could it? Which I think
it's
is
very
kind of
clean.
it's kind of missed the point, I think.
So I don't know. I found this interesting. I did quite a deep dive about this.
Ben, you're not telling me
location.
you've got more weird facts for us, have you?
I do indeed. So the TARDIS has landed next to the Royal Air Force Memorial on the embankment of the Thames. It's the official
In Cardiff? The Thames doesn't run through Cardiff.
It's the official memorial for the British Air Services from First World War onwards. I'm not gonna. You can't see it on screen, and I'm not gonna do the Latin, but the Latin inscription translated as "I bear you on eagle's wings and brought you unto myself," which I feel is an immensely fitting place for the TARDIS to materialize after the Doctor and Rose's first trip together. I wonder if that was intentional. Probably not. So really, this is an apropos of nothing. But I just, I thought that was an immensely fitting first trip in the TARDIS for our new team.
Mind you, a lot of the people working on this were fans, weren't they? So it could be that somebody went out to scout locations and said, that feels right, and suggested it. It could be.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't
It's also got
necessarily
the
be in
best
the script.
view of the London Eye. So
Well,
that's probably exactly with the practicality of that, I imagine, rather than somebody noticed the Latin and went, that fits in on a scripting level, you know.
See, I thought this was the river in Cardiff, and they just photoshopped the London Eye in afterwards.
It is a great, like, there's a lot of good I know people were just like, oh, it's too fun, there's too much comedy, Eccleston can't do comedy, whatever. But there is some fun. Like, this is very silly, and it's very like panto in like a good way.
Here. I
You
don't
know,
know why.
like, I know this is it. I think he's really good. Yeah.
I mean, it's the ears juxtaposed with the wheel. I mean,
oh
that's
God.
what tells it.
Yeah.
And
The
then
bus.
the smile, and then the run across the bridge.
So these buses, I think, are also why Keith Book got fired. So I think now Doctor Who gets to a point where I think it can lock off a street and just hire a bus to drive past them.
Yeah.
And fill it with extras or CGI in some extras. But at this point, when we'll get to it in the confidential, but they literally just lock off a little bit of the pavement.
Yeah.
And the traffic's still going by, and they're waiting for a bus to come so that they can time it with the action, and that seems to take forever.
But that shot does not work without the bus.
It doesn't.
The angle
It
of the
absolutely
shot,
doesn't.
The selling you of the situation, the place, the geography, everything. None of that works if you don't get it without the bus.
But what I mean is that it is really funny to me that this sort of big budget Doctor Who revival doesn't just hire a bus. It's like, no, we're just waiting for one to come past. It's great. It's like Doctor Who's still kind of flying by the seat of its pants and ramshackle in its production, even in the 21st century.
So this is an abandoned paper mill in Grangetown, outside Cardiff, and
did somebody bring Toby Haydock along by accident or something?
But apparently it was so chock-a-block with pigeon shite
that
it had to be scoured from top to bottom and cleaned. And even then, only select cast members and crew members were allowed to go into the upper reaches in case they fucking breathed in some terrible disease.
I'm a postman, so people listening or watching might not necessarily realise that, but years and years ago,
because you don't have your hat on and your high vis.
You've got his black and white cat either.
I can put my stuff on if you want me to. I can take things off if you want. I was just going to tell you a little anecdote about pigeons, but it's not a happy anecdote, so maybe I'll leave it for another time.
I don't know. You've tantalised us now.
Okay, I was delivering to this little cul-de-sac with these detached bungalows in it, and one of the bungalows was this really private guy that nobody ever saw, and he only ever came out if he needed to go and do his shopping. He didn't have any friends, he didn't have any family, he didn't have any neighbours who spoke to him or anything. And one day, they just hadn't seen him for ages and ages. So they phoned the police and said, "Look, we've just really not seen this guy for like a month or something." So the police came round, knocked on his door.
Didn't just go around to his house
letterbox,
and ask if he's okay.
Smelled the smell, bust the front door down, only to discover that what he'd been doing was going into town first thing in the morning with pigeon feed, catching the pigeons, bringing them back to his bungalow. And when they went into his bungalow, and presumably he died of the thing that you've just been talking about, when they went into his bungalow, they found him dead on the floor, surrounded by 500 pigeons, and the entire house was covered in pigeons.
Was this guy's name Mr. D. Dastardly by any chance?
No, this was on my delivery. I was the postman at the time. It was.
I have a lot of questions. I think we need to pick this up not on the.
yeah. We'll come back to that.
This is for the after party.
We couldn't afford One Direction, so we're having the pigeon story instead.
The Autons in this have a keen sense of theatre. Building a special TARDIS holder that unveils at the exact moment that they need.
It's like a prize in a game show, isn't it?
What are they doing to him as well?
So they're apparently trying to chuck him over the edge, but they didn't.
There's not much chucking over the edge going on, is there? I mean, are the Autons, who are made of plastic and are being controlled by the Nestine consciousness, a little bit timid of going anywhere near the Nestine consciousness themselves?
It's made clearer in the script and the novelization that he's doing a good job at not being pushed over the edge. But that is what is happening is they want to fling him in to the Nestine so that his knowledge of time and space and control of the TARDIS can be absorbed.
Right.
We just saw Queen's Arcade.
Yes, I once had to go into the bank there with you and Derek because a card machine at the Red Dragon Centre had eaten my bank card, and I was like, oh well, at least I'm in a Doctor Who location. And to cheer me up, Ben and Derek pretended to be Autons.
And to cheer Derek up, he found a sus little baggie of stuff at the bottom of one of those flights of stairs, which he then happily
must have been left in the hurry to escape the Autons. So we just dropped a baggie of drugs. I do like this. It's not quite got the this sort of moody atmosphere of Spearhead, but in terms of and also we're going to shoot the one classic Doctor Who fan in the face there. That's the.
So we raised a toast to Alan Rusko. That Auton there, let's raise a toast again. That was Paul Casey. He was the first 21st century Doctor Who performer that murdered anybody on screen. He's the first violent Doctor Who monster of the new era. So
there we go. Here comes the first bullshit resolution.
I do like the chaos of this. Like I say,
this
it's not
was all the
that
first
kind of
stuff that was shot.
It's not eerie. It's just like proper, like mad. Like,
and again, tons of coverage to cut between.
Yeah. So all the stuff when we get outside, all the stuff outside was the very first stuff on the 20th of July 2004 that was shot for Rose.
Right.
Tell me, who when they were a kid used to think that they'd be inside shooting the stuff inside, then they'd run outside with the cameras and shoot the scene for outside, then they'd run back indoors and shoot another bit of the scene indoors. Because that's how I used to think they did it.
And of course, somewhere else on the street is Elton Pope from Love and Monsters. He's also. I like
I think these Auton brides are quite scary, actually. Like, I don't know what it is, but it's a really good, really strong image. There's some, because I remember watching this at the time and thinking the Autons weren't as creepy because they were just those kind of, because shop window dummies have got less and less defined. I guess they used to be kind of really quite weird and unsettling, sort of plastic facsimiles of human beings, but now they kind of don't have that. But they do make them really quite striking in this.
It's a shame they're all just wearing kind of very bland suits, though. They could have,
which I suppose is why the brides stand out. I suppose, yeah.
But given that they're doing the brides, would have been nice to see one in like, I don't know, a sports kit or something, just something
A
bit
little
different.
tennis auton, or yeah,
something. Because the thing that was really spooky about those originals was those weird boiler suits with the sort of scarf thing around the neck.
yeah.
That was the thing. Because it just looked weird, and there was something about it that just felt slightly wrong, but you couldn't put your finger on what was wrong about it. And
that ceiling explosion there was a miniature from Mike Tucker and the model unit, making him and Mark Ayers the two people who worked on Classic Who then came over to work on New Who.
What was Mark Ayers' involvement in this then?
He tarted up all the sound effects, like the auton gun sound and the TARDIS noise.
Of course, yeah, right.
There's a small element of sound design that's down to Mark Ayers. So this TARDIS noise you're hearing, the explosions that you see, it's kind of old school Doctor Who providing the imagery.
Even the Dalek control room at the end of the series is the same sound effect, isn't it?
Oh, true.
Yeah.
So yeah, they bothered with that.
And that's it. Because they didn't have to do that. You know, they didn't have to make the Autons sound like they sounded in the 70s. They didn't have to, like you say, the Dalek control room. But the fact that they do, and the fact that they maintain that kind of continuity with the classic series while also doing something brand new and modern, I think is the key to why this was so successful. Because it's ticking boxes for everybody. It's the diehards and the kind of new viewers and stuff.
Yeah.
There's a going back to the novelization again. There's a funny bit, JR. You were saying, why don't you see kind of more variation in the Autons? There's a funny bit where some friends of Mickey's are walking past a gay club or a gay shop, and there's a dummy in the shop window that smashes the window, and he's in wee speedos and some leather harness, chasing people down the street.
I bet that's happened to Russell T Davies, right?
I like that this allows you to see inside the TARDIS.
Yeah,
like that one kind of nagging thing that at the back of your head as a fan you've always wondered about, but they've never articulated on screen until now, and they've found a way of doing it.
And Eccleston's performance here is brilliant.
Yeah.
He's playing like the shy kid who's trying to pluck up the courage to ask somebody out on a date.
Yeah.
And he's just doing it so well. And
the hurt you see when she initially turns them down as well. It's just a really quiet kind of, oh, okay.
And he has to do the whole thing with Mickey there as well.
Yeah. And then when he closes the door here and he returns the TARDIS, there's a whole wealth of short stories, novels, Big Finish audios that take place before he comes back and remembers to tell her that it's a time machine.
They couldn't have set those in between Clive's picture from Krakatoa and, the Titanic or something.
Those two.
It's a good line when he comes back, though. Did I also mention that it travels in time?
Yeah.
Door open, and you come.
And everybody says, including, does this come from Russell T Davies, that when he says, does I mention it also travels in time, that her first thought is, oh, I can go back and save my dad. Honestly, in the instant that he says it, would that actually be the thing that's running through her head? Because I don't know.
Not at all.
No. It's just a good beat, a good dramatic beat in Father's Day when he's annoyed her, I suppose, isn't it? That's kind of why he says it. But yeah, there's because obviously you don't establish that she lost her dad in the
these were added as well, weren't they? They didn't plan on having these, but they added these to bulk up the running time as well, didn't they?
Yeah.
And I think also to kind of get people watching again, I suppose. Because there's a real like the Russell T was like key keen to kind of make every episode a kind of blockbuster, a big idea. So I suppose, yeah, if you put these kind of next time on Doctor Who trailers, it's another way of kind of going, next week, we're in space and there's loads of aliens and the Earth's going to blow up. See you next week. Same time, same place.
So cards on the table here. How many times have you watched Rose?
So, yeah,
Relative figures, I'd
God,
imagine.
probably. I watched it twice on the night. So I watched it, then watched Confidential, and then I think text some people and then fucking rewatched it. And then I think we all watched it the day after, didn't we, Ben, at the Edinburgh group?
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I've watched it again and again and again. You know, it's...
I watched it twice on the night and again the next day. And I think by the end of the series, I'd seen it 5 times. But I think I'm probably still just about in single figures because I haven't watched it a huge amount since 2005. Maybe about 4 times, I think. So I could still be on about 9 or 10. But yeah. It's obviously a lot, right?
Yeah.
That's still way more
I've seen
than
about 10 times or so.
Yeah, that's still way more than any regular person would watch a television program.
Wow.
Sorry, I made a bunch of notes here. I just wanted to go down and see if there was anything that would be a good talking point. So all the movement, all the monster movement by the choreography is by Ailsa Altena Burke, who started her career doing monster movement for Return of the Jedi. I mean, that's pretty good kind of sci-fi pedigree. I like that. And shout out to Lucinda Wright as the costume designer, giving us Eccleston's costume.
Yeah.
Which again, his Doctor, his costume, his manner, his way of being is just so off to the side of any other Doctor. It's just catching it again here. It's just really refreshing.
It's kind of a shame that they go back into, let's do a costume after this, really, isn't it? Or it's kind of a shame, actually, that he sticks to this same jacket and shoes for the entire year, because I think it would have been nice if he could have, you know, along with the costume designers and the producers, decided to make it less of a costume. They talk about the silhouette that David Tennant has, don't they?
Yeah.
I think that's as big a mistake as any of the other costume decisions, like the cricketing outfit for the 5th Doctor, because you, me, Ben, Mark, any one of us on this call is not going to go out thinking, oh, must maintain my silhouette tonight. Are we?
Speak for yourself. The first thing I think before I walk out the door.
It's a wide silhouette where I'm concerned.
But you know what I mean? That is not the way people do it. And so to sort of impose that on the Doctor, that just takes it just to the left of this is a real person a little bit too far, I think.
Well, I mean, this is the character that chooses to wear question marks. So I think he probably does think about his silhouette before he heads out of the TARDIS.
Well, maybe so.
Do we want to go straight into Confidential? It is Confidential time, everybody. We've got to switch over to BBC Three.
Sure.
Okay, well, I can tell you, before we even start, exactly how many times I've watched this. This is the second.
Yeah, I think it's probably the same here. Will it be the 3rd, because I watched it this morning.
Oh, fair enough.
All right, should we do a 3? Okay, so we've switched over to BBC Three, to Doctor Who Confidential, Episode 1, Bringing Back the Doctor. When did we find out that there was going to be a making of Doctor Who?
I feel like it was quite a few months earlier, wasn't it?
I think it was. I remember it being announced, but I can't remember when it was, because it was part of the kind of like Doctor Who's going to be back on BBC One on Saturday nights, and it will be followed by a making of show, and there was like a big thing about
it. Would definitely have been by the time they started production in the summer of 2004, because the film crew doing Confidential would have to have been out there doing it with them. And I think they would have let people know by that point that that's what was happening and why it was happening.
Okay, should we press play? 3, 2, 1, and then
Let me
play?
I'll pop the link for anybody who's watching on YouTube who wants to do that. And then 3, 2, 1. Great.
Okay.
All right. 3, 2, 1. Play.
Hey,
And we're off.
who does the music for this?
Oh, I
'Cause
can't remember.
Yeah, the theme for this is not one by Murray Gold. It's by somebody else, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because it's much more like let's do a dance music version of the Doctor
Yeah.
Who thing, really, isn't it? I think this is what everybody was expecting the theme for the main program to be before we heard the Murray Gold thing, right?
Yeah, because I suppose I guess nobody was really kind of expecting the kind of orchestral version.
No, everybody had heard Orbital, and everybody was expecting a sort of second-rate Orbital ripoff.
Yeah.
God,
So this is interesting. This episode of Confidential because it's part making of Rose, but then it's also part kind of retreading similar ground to the New Dimension documentary, which is why are we bringing back Doctor Who? Here's everything you need to know about Doctor Who between 1963 and 1989.
That continues on for the rest of this series, though, doesn't it? Because it always dips back into the history.
It does, yeah.
Again after this series, yeah.
I wonder if that New Dimension, and I think I may have read this, but maybe I'm imagining it, was made much later in the day when they were getting ready to broadcast, and BBC One, the controllers there, were thinking, oh, this is better than we thought it was going to be. Maybe we could have a half-hour thing to go out before it to get people really pumped up. So it could be that these confidentials were being made alongside the episodes, and then the one that you watched without me, I must have.
I'm without Lee.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, don't worry. It was just...
Oh, fair enough. Oh, right, I get it. Yes, I see. Unbelievable. Anyway, yes, I don't know if you would have mentioned this then, but yeah, I feel that was something that was probably only commissioned a few weeks before the first episode went out.
Quite possibly, because it's mostly footage from the red carpet at the press launch and some interviews, part which are in this.
Because I feel that once Rose leaked on the internet, the BBC thought to themselves, well, everybody's seen it, so we're going to have to give them something new.
Maybe.
Yeah, that's a consideration, yeah.
So this is where Russell is talking about how we're going to modernize Doctor Who and how it's it's 70% of it's on location than before because it was always studio bound and all this kind of thing. So that was always kind of their approach, which is like we said with Rose, it's like maybe give them more coverage to kind of achieve that. I suppose more time to kind of get all these shots, because I mean it is great to see Doctor Who on location, and it is, I suppose, quite like recognizable locations. I don't just mean like a woodland, just off the Uxbridge Road, or like a little village or whatever. It's proper, sort of tourist, and I suppose that's with an eye on appealing to like a global audience as well. So it's like this is a British sci-fi show. We've got Big Ben in it, and the London Eye, and Tower Bridge, and all these kind of things.
A red phone box and all that bits and pieces.
Yeah, but that's it, isn't it? Heritage Britain destroyed by aliens.
Yes, yeah.
It's the British version of what Independence Day was doing.
Yeah, that's true, actually. Yeah, that's a good point.
There's Phil pretending he knew about the Latin all along.
In my head, that felt like such a fun fact. And then when it was coming out of my mouth, it was like, this is such a boring
It's interesting, Ben.
fact.
Don't do yourself down.
Does Keith Boak turn up in any of these confidentials at any
He does.
point?
He's interviewed in this, and he's there. He is there.
Was he?
Pointing,
is that?
Yeah,
no, I mean in conversation. Does he talk?
Yeah, he does it.
Yeah.
A few interviews, on this episode, I think. And that's him now talking. You'll see.
That's him.
There he is.
Oh, right, fair enough. Yeah. Because I was just wondering to what extent they might have cut him out of the loop. Because it felt like he was the one who, at the time, was getting the blame for everything, didn't it?
Has he ever done conventions? No, not even a.
I don't
I
think so.
feel like
no.
he maybe did a Gallifrey one at some point, but I'm not sure.
I'm not even sure
This
he
is-
has. It's like one of those names where I feel like, because like I say, I went out of my way to try and find other stuff he'd done. So I became.
But this is a lovely moment with Billy Piper, Chris Fretzelson, and Keith Boak talking about the TARDIS scene. And actually kind of going, wind me up a bit more, and so I could be offended, and I'm like defensive about the TARDIS looking like a corny old police box. It's really nice to see those two kind of like work out a scene together.
Yeah.
And clearly
that's
they
not
hadn't
Trouble in
fallen out yet.
Paradise, there is it? Yeah.
Eh?
I'm just going to say, and that's not Trouble in Paradise there.
Yeah, so something's clearly like later down the line, I guess.
Well, and yet they talk about like the big troubles happening right from the first day, don't they?
Yeah, well, yeah, they do, but I think, but not between Chris and Billy, crucially, but maybe with Keith Boak. But then I do think everything that Eccleston said since, he didn't say sack Julie Gardner, sack Russell T Davies, sack Phil Collinson, and make sure Keith Boak never works again.
No.
So I think he was more upset with the way that the production team had handled any failings. Because Billy Piper in her autobiography talks about how hard it was, and how there's a thing she says where she says something like, in terms of the schedule, that she's like, I think even Julie Gardner would say now that it was a mistake.
Yeah.
To sort of do all those episodes in that first block.
It's insane, really, isn't it? What were they doing? 7 weeks to do 3 45-minute episodes
like that, yeah.
with like all these special effects, all this location work, and everything. It's just mad.
Because you didn't even do that. Like, I suppose the classic era, you did what? It was a few days, like maybe 4 days per episode on set and a couple of days on location.
Same location, yeah.
But they were working from like 10 in the morning until 10 o'clock at night. It's crazy.
Yeah, but then also stopping at lunchtime for.
Well, yes, for quite a long sort of trip to the bar, yeah.
But they were also basically making it as theatre, weren't they?
Well, yes, yeah.
Theatre with cameras, and this is something entirely different. This is being shot like a movie shot.
Yeah.
He looks so much younger, doesn't he?
Well, it was 20 years ago, to be fair.
Yeah. Before his dream ground him down. There he is.
Yeah.
Before the Tetley's tea addiction got hold of him.
I buy my Tetley's tea bags in huge, great bags as well, just like he did.
I do like this kind of concerted effort on the part of Russell T Davies and Clayton Hickman to be like, no. Look, don't be scared. He's a bit like John Pertwee at times. He's a bit like Tom Baker. He's a bit like Peter Davison.
No,
like,
yeah, those 2,000 Doctor Who fans. Those 2,000 Doctor Who fans who were listening to Big Finish and reading the BBC books must have been really scared. And it's like, we don't lose those 2,000 viewers.
Yeah.
We've got these 11 million others, but let's not lose those 2,000.
Yeah, I know. But I wonder, though, if that is a byproduct of the fact that they were worried that it was going to tank, and that the only people watching it would be Doctor Who fans. So then in this, you have them going, no, please, please look, like, it's Doctor Who, it's proper Doctor Who.
Yeah, it feels like...
Don't you leave us as well, and then actually they don't need to worry about it because 10 million people showed up on the night, you know?
Yeah, it's a bit like they made the confidentials before anybody had actually seen the program and realized that, actually it works.
So the confidential cut downs that you get on the official releases, this is all the stuff that you've lost. It's anything that requires rights issues or clearances or all of these bits about past Doctor Who.
Needs to be better to Cure in the background as well.
Yeah.
Oh, what's playing in the background?
From the Daleks Master Plan as well.
It's
it's in between days, isn't it?
In between days,
is it?
Yeah.
Did anybody... So confidential, 30 minutes, and then by 2 years later, it's 45 minutes on each episode. Did anybody think after about 3 weeks this is too much? 20 minutes. for
Yeah.
the time?
When Confidential got cancelled, I said well, so farewell then, Doctor Who Confidential. When it was good, it was very good. When it was bad, it was footage of a car being driven into a lake for about 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And Danny Hargreaves.
Yeah, Danny
One of
Hargreaves
those.
blowing his little cannon.
I mean,
when
this is the-
Confidential. Oh, just to finish that point, when Confidential was cancelled, I hadn't seen an episode for 4 years.
Yeah, I'd kind of.
I gave up.
It's the
I suppose
attempt
we're all kind of watching
to
it
keep
out
the
of
buzz
duty a wee
going.
bit, though, weren't
I
we?
mean,
Oh, sorry, Ben.
sorry, no, sorry, I've got the two sounds going in the ear, so I
Yeah,
can't.
me too. I didn't hear you.
Oh, what? People are listening to this. I've just got the picture up.
Yeah, me too.
I'm
No,
not
it's
stupid.
very low level.
I'm
but I
not
just wanna hear
technical
what
like
people
those
say.
guys.
I made a copy with subtitles so that in case the internet broke, we could all make sure we didn't need to be listening to it at the same time. And you're all listening to it at the same time.
I'm not.
No, you and me, Mark, we're the only ones with any common sense.
So this is interesting. This we'll get to it in a bit when they then just do the thing that they did on A New Dimension, where they recount every single Doctor.
It's all right, Mark. I'm just trying to give you the experience that Ben and Lee are having.
Well, you're not, because Colin Baker's currently talking, so do me a Colin Baker impression. Come on.
Yeah, come on, John Colshaw, let's have it.
No, I'm not going to do impersonations. I'm not Matt Barber.
Okay.
I'm not Ian Martin.
He is good, Ian Martin. He's good at he does a great Sylvester McCoy.
Ian since the dawn of time.
So Eccleston, what I find really interesting revisiting all this, Eccleston's kind of discussion of kind of Doctor Who and how Doctor Who wasn't really for him as a kid, but yet he was fascinated by regeneration, and he would always watch. He says in that BBC Breakfast interview, like he was generally always out playing football or whatever, and he would never watch Doctor Who, but he would always kind of come in if there was a regeneration episode because he'd seen it on the news or whatever, and it's. I suppose it's true. That's still true today. You have people that aren't really all that interested in Doctor Who,
Yeah,
but they'll tune in to see Jodie Whittaker be the first female Doctor, or David Tennant and Catherine Tate coming back, and things like that. Like it is an institution now that people tune in for the big moments. But I think perhaps now even more so than before because of this night. 20 years ago.
But like people will do that for soaps as well. I mean, I'm not
exactly
a soap watcher, and neither is my mum or my dad. But my mum, she'll be an avid viewer of, say, something like Loose Women, and big developments in soaps will always form the basis of like guest panels on Loose Women. So the moment they say something big is about to happen, just out of national curiosity, my mum will watch these things.
what is it?
Well, EastEnders is
feel to be part of the family. Party, like the national party.
Yeah, well, EastEnders is 40th anniversary. I think they got like a bump of like 2 million viewers or something like that, just because it's the 40th, and they brought back Ross Kemp, and they're doing a live episode, and they're going to blow up the Vic, and it's all that kind of stuff.
People don't like FOMO, and especially not national level or cultural level FOMO, fear of missing out. They'll watch bits like that.
Well, and also, they call it the water cooler thing, but it's not. It kind of is, and it kind of isn't. But people do like to be able to go into work in the morning and have something that they can share with their colleagues in terms of conversation. So you want to go into work the following morning and have something to talk about beyond, it's 9 o'clock, ready to start. What are you doing first thing today? And what's on last night's telly always was that thing, wasn't it?
Yeah, and now it's. Did you watch that? Did you watch Adolescence on Netflix over the weekend? Or it's still there. It's a different form of thing, but it's still the same principle.
And also social media, the fact that you do it on your social media as it's happening, rather than the following morning, in the 10 minutes between getting to work and starting work, that's changed it as well, hasn't it?
Yeah.
There's an interesting, just picking up something Mark and I were talking about when we were watching A New Dimension. We were talking about the fact that David Tennant,
without me and Lee,
Either private
We
party
didn't think
or-
anybody would
we
care.
thought you would want to have your dinner at 5:25 instead of chatting with us.
But there's a they do a whistle stop tour through the Doctors, but there's a celebratory tone about it, about how it kind of fits in culturally with its times. This is very more taken up with actual regeneration. It's showing the regenerations. It's talking about the concept of how this fictional character is able to have so many faces. In the way that we talked about David Tennant as narrator, is that seeding the idea of a new leading man in the wings. Is this Doctor Who Confidential seeding the idea of this is a natural part of the process of the show?
Yeah, it's
very much.
interesting,
It's probably a leak is probably going to happen imminently. So
Yeah, I was going to say, 'cause if
here,
they'd
don't
known
worry, is the solution to that.
Yeah.
Because if we'd have known that Eccleston was gone,
Yeah, well,
this wouldn't they?
yeah.
I wonder though, but did they know that Tennant was going to be the Doctor, or did he get it because he came in to do this Confidential?
No, he's got it because
Looking
of
at the
Casanova, didn't
timings.
he?
Casanova, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh
looking
yeah, I
at the
know he got it
timings.
because of Casanova, but they didn't cast him while he was making Casanova, did they?
I
They
think
cast
they
him.
did, or like not that long after.
They cast him while he
Tennant
was in
almost
rehearsals
certainly,
for the
when he was the
Quatermass.
voiceover for the New Dimensions documentary, knew he was going to be the Doctor. It goes out on March 26th. He is announced to the press on April 16th, 2 weeks later, as the successor.
One thing I
can
wanted
tell you
to flag
exactly
there.
when he was cast in March of 2005.
So there we go.
Or at least I've just looked at when because he was cast when the live Quatermass was in rehearsals, and it was
Right.
broadcast on April the 2nd. So it would have been in rehearsals in March. So he was cast like
Yeah.
literally in the days and weeks before the broadcast of the first episode.
Because then he went
Wow.
off and did a play in Edinburgh. Not long after he did Look Back in Anger at the Lyceum, I think it was.
Yeah.
And was doorstepped by some Doctor Who fans, including John Melville, who were like, "Oh, you should be the next Doctor Who." Anyway,
Remember,
what
he
I
told that story about he heard about it and he was in rehearsal with Mark Gatiss, wasn't he? And he didn't know whether he could tell Mark Gatiss
That's
or not.
So because we talked over it when they were doing the little sort of cycle through all the past Doctors. Ben and I were talking about how it's quite a celebratory thing. It doesn't linger on the kind of negatives of the classic era. Cranky Colin Baker played the 6th Doctor Who. Cheeky cunts.
Oh yeah, that could have gone out. I suppose it's
And then-
BBC Three, isn't it?
And McCoy talked about Colin not turning up for the regeneration. He goes, "Well, I can understand why, but and it's weird. It's weird. They don't say why."
Yeah.
Oh really? Yeah.
But Colin, but the fact, he
Yeah,
didn't
they've made
turn
it
up
seem
makes
like it
no
was
sense.
Colin Baker's fault.
Yeah, it's really odd.
Like he was the
Really odd.
Eccleston of his day.
Yeah.
It's absolutely ridiculous to expect him to do it, though.
Yeah, but yeah. What I also like there, which we just missed, was Chris Ferguson saying that quote, which he says in interviews about, "I'm not going to win over, a 40-year-old man for whom John Pertwee or Tom Baker is their Doctor."
Yeah.
And I admire that loyalty. I love that. That's sort of like I like a Doctor that's just like, listen, I'm not going to try and be your favorite Doctor Who. I'm not going to try and be your dad's. It's just going to be,
But it's this is the thing that gets me about the new Snow White. All these people saying, "Oh, well, it's not going to compare favorably with the old one." It's like, well, who cares? Because the point is, the new Snow White is for the kids who are 8 now.
Yeah.
Not for the kids who were 8 in 1930.
Yeah, so fucking grow up.
Yeah, so get over it and let it happen. And people who say, "Oh, you can't make live remakes of animated films." Disney have been making live remakes of animated films and animated versions of things that they'd already done in live action since the 1920s.
Look, Disney don't have anything to do with Doctor Who until 2024. We're in 2025 now. But what we can
nice
say
little bit we just missed there, Barry. I think Ben was going to point out about him interacting with the kids on set.
Yeah, no, I just I enjoyed. I liked the gentlemanly quality of introducing himself to the kid actors around the table.
Treating them like they're
Yes,
adults
nice,
as well,
mate.
just going around
Yeah,
like
Look
a
at that!
table.
shaking
Look
their
at that!
hand.
Ehrman was name checked
I
on
know.
Doctor Who
So I
Confidential.
looked into this. The Doctor Who Big Finish audio that they are
Very
recording in this extra is Three's a Crowd, which also featured Deborah Watling as I think some kind of alien lizard thing. I
Oh,
can't
really?
remember. But yeah, so there you go.
Wow.
It's a little fact.
Why are they? So this is an example of how
It's all
30 minutes
padding.
of we're already way beyond. We've gone so far beyond the rainbow and into Oz that we're looking at Big Finish being made.
It's
in the
mad,
first
isn't it? It's
episode
like
of Confidential.
it's the first
But this
episode.
is
It's a
great.
making of show.
This is great.
But I think they're trying to demonstrate like Doctor Who didn't go away. It's had this kind of strong fan base, and now it's back, and we're going to build on that fan base, and more people will buy Big Finish, and we won't have any more Richard E. Grant, but people will buy Big Finish in the magazine.
Doctor Who Confidential is the definition of chasing the buzz. Like this is the Doctor Who Confidential are those final 2 pints at the end of the night that you probably didn't need, but it just kept the party going, like it just kept the buzz going.
But the thing I've never got about this whole, the fans kept the program alive. No, the program was dead. And, a few thousand fans buying Big Finish audios is not the reason why the BBC brought it back.
But it didn't feel dead though for a lot of people who liked Doctor Who.
Yeah, but for
it didn't for Mark
people.
and I going to the Monday Club and having Big Finish and reading Doctor Who magazine and reading these books. Like I know it was a very insular, very niche world. Never. I mean, I know you've already said,
but a very small world as well.
Well,
very small world, but like
because I remember coming to
felt
Doctor Who in the Wilderness Years, and you have that jigsaw puzzle of trying to put together all the stuff you haven't seen, and sort of getting it piecemeal. That was great, Kids today don't know they're born. All on the iPlayer. Come on, do me a favor.
But the point I'm making is they didn't bring Doctor Who back because of the Doctor Who fans who were buying BBC books. They brought Doctor Who back because when Curse of Fatal Death went out, it was watched by 15 million people, none of whom batted an eyelid at not having seen Doctor Who for 10 years, and just said, yeah, this is great.
And it is great. Again, the amount of footage they've got of future episodes feels...
they're just giving it away. They're sawing it off by the yard. They're just giving it away. I love how nondescript and very basic some of the backgrounds are. It's just a couple of he's just in an attic somewhere, but a couple of pictures stuck up in the background. Clayton Hickman is obviously sitting at a desk and he's just stuck a Dalek and some magazines around on the table.
We'll photocopy a few DWMs and stick them on the wall. There you go. There's your set dressing, Russell.
Well, they're probably Russell T Davies. They're probably filming at his home, aren't they?
It's so funny.
He's the writer. He doesn't move to Cardiff for production. He still lives at wherever he's living.
I was in Manchester at that point.
Yeah, Manchester.
Oh, yeah, Manchester. It is funny, this dedicated follower of fashion montage of all the costumes, practically opens with William Hartnell dressed as a cowboy, but holding a massive handkerchief to his mouth because he's still got toothache. So, very stylish. Very, very cool.
And a nice shot of Colin Baker covered in the dog shit from the shoot of Mark of the Road.
Hey, it's a look. It's a look.
Again, Mark and I were talking about this at the beginning of the night. You kind of thought there wasn't a lot of acknowledgement of classic Doctor Who from this night's launch, but it's teeming with it. Like it's absolutely teeming with shots and imagery and episodes and clips of classic Doctor Who. It's incredibly well represented in a way that I don't think we fully appreciated at the time.
No, it's because I don't remember it being this obvious, that kind of connection with the old stuff.
Maybe because at the time, because all we knew was classic Doctor Who, as fans, we all wanted to see classic Doctor Who. But now, looking back, we've got 20 years of new Who. And we've got all of classic Who on iPlayer, on DVD, everything else. Because it wasn't all out on DVD.
Yeah.
It wasn't even remote. They were just at the start of releasing it on DVD, really. And so all those bits were like, oh, wow, we want more of this. And so it felt like not a lot. Now we don't need to see it anymore. So it feels like maybe even they've overdone it.
Yeah, maybe. But then I wonder if, because, with all the problems of Rose, there's probably a lot of behind-the-scenes footage that they weren't going to include. Because this is all about the production's marvelous. We're doing a wonderful thing. So I wonder if that kind of like primer, that kind of thing about regeneration, that kind of the Doctor's costume, let's have a montage of all the old Doctor's costumes, is partly born out of we don't have a lot of behind the scenes footage. Because if you watch, like as Confidential goes on, it becomes more and more built from behind the scenes footage. Or that episode, the Pompeii one, where Tennant takes you on a trip around Pompeii and
so they're finding their feet as well, aren't they?
Yeah,
and they've got choices to make because they've decided to do a behind the scenes thing. You can do it for BBC Three, which is teenagers, which means it has to be fast and it has to keep cutting between different things. Or you could do it for BBC Four, where it's aimed at older people, and you'd actually have sit-down conversations with the director. And yeah, you'd cut to footage and stuff, but the interviews themselves would be a bit more substantial. Because this was the thing for me. This was why I stopped watching it. It wasn't just that there was too much of it, but also it's insubstantial. It doesn't really get down. Very few episodes actually drill into the kind of stuff that's really interesting about TV production and about how writers have the ideas and stuff. That's what I want to hear about, I think.
Yeah, there's a good one every now and again, but like generally, it's
or
very
it's gone out on CBBC, and it could have been 20 minutes of sort of, totally Doctor Who.
Oh yeah,
well, I guess that's why the cut down Confidentials were good.
Do you know what I mean? But in between having totally Doctor Who on CBBC and this on BBC Three, you don't actually have anything for the people of our age to go with it. So every now and again you get something like the Culture Show special, but really these are all for
it's kind of about hooking that new audience though, isn't it? Because I think they've already taken for granted that people that have been long-term fans are coming along for the ride anyway.
Oh, and absolutely.
Fair enough, maybe it should have been something for that section of the fans, but
Confidential's not the thing that's hooking the new viewers, is it? It's the program itself.
Oh, yeah.
So it just feels like, it obviously hit
Mike Westergaard. Sorry, Mike Westergaard was the guy that did the theme tune for Confidential.
So there you go. Mark Westergaard of, not Orbital, but probably like M6 or something. Was he in M6? Is there a band called M6? Like a hip-hop, synth-pop duo type thing called M6?
M83. But I don't know if it's... Yeah. By the way, the anecdote police have turned up in the comments, Mark.
Oh, what are they doing? Are they moaning about my anecdote?
I'm here just to make sure nobody relates any dubious anecdotes from the Eccleston era. Confidential was perfect at the time, so of the moment. It's weird to hear Mikey be so positive about us.
That was a pleasure watching that with you guys. I'm not. Weirdly sounds like I'm calling everything to an end. I'm not. I'm just wanted to say this has been really enjoyable.
It also makes it sound like you don't. Again. It makes it sound, Ben, like you don't like doing other things with us. It's like it's a pleasure watching that with you guys. But I wouldn't do anything else with you guys.
It was fun though.
Against all odds, I had a great time with you. Wow, what a turn up for the books.
You should do more of these. This was fun. You should do more of these.
Well, I
next week the Unquiet Dead.
Next week will be the end of the world. Now, so yesterday, for context, I went to. So what I like to do, and I haven't done it for years, and I've started to do it a lot more.
I don't think I want to know.
Maybe because I go to the cinema, right?
That's why he was arrested.
When Ben and I first started on the Time Lash, every Sunday I used to go to the cinema, in the morning, see whatever was out, go for a pint, and then go meet Ben, and we'd record an episode of Untitled. Anyway, so yesterday I went to the cinema, went to watch the Alto Nights. Don't bother. Had a pint, had another pint, had another pint, had one more pint, came home, and I messaged Ben. I was like, "Do you know what? We should do a live commentary every Wednesday for the next 13 weeks." Completely forgetting, of course, that I start a new job on Tuesday, and I have no idea what my Wednesdays are going to look like for the next 13 weeks. But maybe we'll see. We'll see. Who knows?
Or you could say sod the date and just do it once a week, but on a Saturday, because that's the natural home of Doctor Who. And you know
Possibly.
what? All those people who are not watching the new series of Doctor Who can watch your commentaries instead.
Leave it to me and JR. We'll schedule your podcast for you.
Great, thanks, guys. Can you babysit for Ben as well? Because I think he's got some other sort of pressing concerns.
He's been ill recently, not worryingly ill. Everything's okay, but it's been a couple of times where in simply one ear I've got you guys talking. I got like a low level sound of the actual episode, and in the other ear I've got like major screaming beyond the door. And like a couple of times I've had to text my wife going, are you okay? Should I come out and help? So I may have jeopardized my child's health in order to be part of this as well.
The thing is, Ben, we wouldn't have missed you at all.
Hey, you wouldn't have known what was written on the Royal Air Force Memorial if it wasn't for this guy sitting here, and you'd have felt like a prize idiot. So I had so many notes. I thought we were going to go different. The best part of that commentary was fucking some guy that died with 500 pigeons around him. I mean, that's why people listen to On the Time Lad.
Let's 500 pigeons.
No.
It was.
So it was going out and
Oh, I'm giving you the sort of ballpark figure because obviously, well, no, actually, they had to have people in. I mean, I was the postman at this time. You'd see them coming and going. People were coming in to take.
Did you never shove anything through like the post hole and like a wee blast of
the
feathers?
Post hole? The post hole?
Letterbox.
Is that what we're calling that now?
Well,
I feel like you're the negligent one, JR. You should have checked up long before that guy died with 500
yeah, but
pigeons.
like, is that pigeon shit?
To know about
feather dust coming out the fucking letterbox when you were stuffing an Amazon package through.
Sad fact, in the 56 and a half years I've spent on this planet, my nose has never worked. I can't smell anything.
That sounds like you were lining that up for a police investigation.
Yeah.
I wasn't me. My nose doesn't work. I bet you bumped him off. I bet like he had never seen a pigeon in his life before that until you come up with a perfect Agatha Christie-esque murder. I'll just fucking keep funneling pigeons through his back window and he's dead.
That was like a weird story though.
Yes, it was.
Because in Exeter, famously, there were all these stories about this guy who would turn up. I can't remember. They had a nickname for him, like the pigeon bloke.
The fucking pigeon catcher. Was that the nickname?
Well, this is it. This guy used to turn up in town with like one of those little wheelie trolley things that people do their shopping in.
And now we know what it was fucking full of.
And he was feeding
Did he have a fucking butterfly net as well? Like, what's...
Well, this is it. This would be like at 7 a.m. and when people's backs were turned, he was picking the pigeons up and putting them in the trolley and taking them home.
Oh, God.
Are we still on live?
I mean, look,
oh yeah.
If anything about that guy's death, he died the way he wanted to. I mean, like that wasn't an accident. That wasn't something that got out of hand.
Yeah, he died the way he lived. Yeah, surrounded by
that guy. Fucking wanted that to be his last couple of hours. Just pigeons swirling about his head as his life ebbed from his body.
Wow.
That is also if Mark and I do more commentaries. That's the barometer of guests. Like a guest has to bring the most bizarre fucking anecdote
that they can somehow tie into the episode that we're talking about. Yeah.
And then tell it over the most exciting part of the episode. Completely distract from like the culmination of the plot. They're just going, yeah, no, there was a fucking guy, and I used to post him stuff on like 500 dead pigeons, and he was dead. And
It's not like Mark paid me a $5 to tell a story about pigeons before we started recording or anything.
I didn't even know the pigeon story. Oh god!
and if it was only a $5, you were robbed, mate. You deserve
Oh.
much more. That was gold. That was a bar of gold.
You get people afterwards saying, "You've got to watch this. You've got to watch this. There's a story about pigeons." It's an hour and 90 minutes into the recording. So an hour and 90 minutes, and you'll be.
There's a story about a man. There's a story about a man with 500 pigeons, and also the monument to the RAF on the banks of the Thames. It's a wonderful hour.
It's from one extreme to another.
Do you know why I brought that up? Right? Because
I just told a story about pigeons, and you wanted to up me one.
No. So the reason I was giving the production credit where maybe it was not due was the script editor of Rose was a guy called Elwyn Rowlands, who does a lot of script editing for RTD. In the script, it's not on screen. It's not reflected in any way. There's no signage up. You know the restaurant where Rose and Mickey are out, and he starts getting all fucking slab-handed and smashing up tables. In the script, Elwyn Rowlands names that place Tisano's, which is apparently Lee, you're nodding. You know, it's an Italian painter from the fucking 16th century whose most famous painting is that picture of Salome with John the Baptist's head on a plate. And they thought that was, and like that's a kind of meta level. Like Mickey gets his head pulled off, so they call it after the name of the artist of that famous fucking head on a plate painting. And I was like, all right, well, so it's feasible that they chose that specific spot because of the Latin inscription.
Yeah. Well, I thought you were going to say for a minute, named after a famous painting where everybody's just got great big slabs for hands.
I'd like to see that painting. I'd like to see that.
Yeah.
So I should talk about the paintings behind me as well, because he might be watching. A guy I work with called Darren just gives me loads of Doctor Who paintings every now and again, and they're really great quality.
That's fair enough.
Really
Hello,
great
Darren.
quality.
I was admiring your Capaldi earlier on before I came on, actually.
It's great, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's great.
Looking forward to a wee bit so we can all get a closer look.
He has no idea what Doctor Who is, but because he likes... So there's a boy that works in the delivery yard that loves Led Zeppelin. So he's done him a painting of all the Led Zeppelin album covers.
Nice.
And like we talk and we're pals, and I told him I like Doctor Who. So he goes away and researches. It's purely just to fulfill the artistic creativity.
Nice.
He's using whatever somebody likes as a muse, and then he'll show up one day like with a wrapped up Tesco bag with like really great Doctor Who paintings in a bag. So yeah, I thought I'd put them on display for this live stream. Yeah. So there we are.
Does he take requests?
He probably does. He's a very good artist. So he also
For a fee, I would hope.
He's I actually
For
can't
JR,
remember
not
what
for
his
you, Ben.
handle
You're
is.
friends, you know.
I actually can't remember what his handle is on Instagram, but maybe if you follow me, I will. Could he do me a Linda Lusardi?
Mike's not Linda Lusardi.
He would do you the most erotic, illegal Linda Lusardi image that you could ever conceive of, Mikey Smith.
Oh,
I really need a wee, but I feel like this is the wrong time to go to the toilet.
Message
So I'm
me
gonna
this
just
text,
sit here
I'll
in
show it to
discomfort.
him, and we'll see what we can do for you.
I feel like I've done the wrong thing here. So what we on SteamYard told me to put in a subtitle. Nobody else has bothered, have they? I don't know whether that makes me stupid or it makes the three of you lazy. But I see Lee's accidentally put his subtitles as his main
Bit
name.
of column A, bit of column B.
I felt like peaked with what I put here, and then subtitle would just be pale in comparison, so I just left it.
I mean, the Neil Diamond
don't
thing,
even
you've
know
done
what I
that
would-
in honour of Noel Clarke, haven't you? I mean, some of those Neil Diamond songs are a little bit these days. Girl, you'll be a woman soon.
So what next? How did everyone spend their evening? after
Rewatching
half
Rose?
with no.
Yeah. I think I rewatched.
I think we
Rose.
did. Yeah, didn't we?
Yeah, at least one more time. Because I was thinking, what else would have been on that night? But yeah, Winning Lines, Casualty,
Yeah, all the staples, isn't it?
Match of the Day. So yeah, I think I just rewatched Rose.
How old would you all have been?
I was 19.
When you're not down, this is a Saturday night. You're not out getting slashed.
I was the following weekend.
Slashed.
I think I genuinely, because Doctor Who was back, I genuinely was like, no calls, please.
Yeah, I think you live up to it. Yeah.
Yeah, because I went out, and when I rewatched it later that evening, it was like 2 a.m.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm pretty sure I stayed in for that when I was 21.
Just sitting there at 2 a.m. watching it, surrounded by 500 pigeons.
We're back in a second.
21. And Mark says he was 19. This was 20 years ago. Is Mark telling us he's still the right side of 40? Because I don't believe him. I mean, I can say that because he's not here.
I'm definitely not. 26.
I love when he moves, because then you get a better sense of what he's got on his shelves. Like, I love a shelf look. So nosy. I mean, I'm having a sensory overload looking behind you, JR. I mean, like, that's
this is. I've got a computer in the front corner of a semi-converted garage that we just use to store things. So it is literally just boxes and bookcases and shelves and all sorts, all just, crazy up behind me every which way. Which is why I tried to blur it at the start, because it is very distracting, isn't it? But the blur was even worse.
It's kind of got like a podcasting after the apocalypse. I'm the last person with any communicative.
Yeah. I'm the only person who's got anything left. The apocalypse happened, and I just went out and stole everybody's books and CDs and DVDs and everything else, and they're all here.
That's what you want to do. You don't have to spend crazy money filling in, Doctor Who the collection box set, because you didn't get the limited edition ones. Just wait for an apocalypse and go around and fucking axe open some doors and help yourself. I'll be going around to Mark's house. Hey Mark, how's it going? How's it going?
And if you want to know what's on my shelves, these are the things that are within easiest reach.
Ooh, Turlo and the Earthlink dilemma. That looks like a pristine copy as well.
What's that?
Zombie movie from Brighton.
I don't know why I'm turning to scan the shelves here, because I'm at the in-laws' house and there is no Doctor Who on these shelves.
Big Finish.
Big Finish is Night of the Triffids.
Yes. Coming up soon to a Strangers in Space podcast near you.
See, they've confirmed Camille Kaduri is going to be in the new 9th Doctor Big Finishes. Which is going to be awkward, because how are they going to explain where Mickey is whenever they go back?
Well, they can set it in that. No, they can't, can they?
I mean, I think that production team have never stopped explaining where Mickeys have been.
When have they set these stories then? In that year?
Yeah, I think.
It must be. Yeah.
It'll be after they got rid of
can't go home
Adam,
before. Yeah, it would probably be. Yeah, because there's an obvious gap, I suppose, between the long game and Father's Day, I suppose.
Yeah.
There are quite a few gaps towards the end of
that. And then you've got that whole period, which they won't do because obviously John Barrowman. But you've got that whole period between kind of the Doctor dances and Boomtown, where it seems like they've been travelling for ages.
Yeah. There's plenty of gaps they could fill.
Yeah.
Just surprised there was series.
As the actress said to Noel Clarke.
I've been enjoying the commentary on. Have I been enjoying it? That's the wrong words. The John Barrowman's obviously going to be doing various Comic Cons. I think Liverpool's the next one he's due to do, and people up in arms about him on X, whatever it's called this week.
Why?
And I don't
because he got his
remember.
willy out fucking 17 years ago. Like, can we just
get
over it?
I'm saying
the world's on fire. The world's on
Well, this is
fire,
what-
and we.
There wasn't the level of discourse on X that I can recall when they announced Alec Baldwin doing last year's Comic Con.
Yeah. And he shot a lassie.
Yes.
I think we probably could genuinely say it's not his fault, though.
Well,
Shouldn't
sure.
we?
I mean, well, he was a producer on it, so there's an element of accountability where maybe he should have actually, instead of being a producer in name only, maybe have exercised more oversight. But yeah, I mean, you know,
But when
it
you
wasn't
pay
nice.
somebody to make sure that the gun's got blanks in, you kind of assume, given that it's a gun that's going to be fired on a set, that person's made sure it's got blanks in
Yeah.
rather than bullets.
Still, though, come on. The world's on fire. But do we really still care that John Barrowman got his willy out in 2008?
Nobody cares. I'm sorry that he does not get the not adoration. That's the wrong word. But I'm sorry he's not back in like the kind of the fold of Doctor Who fandom. I think he's a very worthwhile and entertaining individual.
I've got 3 fingers here, and these 3 fingers say, in third place, got his willy out. In second place, crap actor. In first place, irritating individual. And those are the reasons why John Barrowman's not doing Doctor Who now.
So there. Take that, JB.
Fair enough. It's funny. He did an interview for STV.
Yeah.
And he did the whole thing in his Scottish accent. And
I
I was just watching the whole thing on my phone. And Amy, my partner, is like, she's quite the John Barrowman fan. Turned to me and she said, "Oh, what are you watching?" I said, "Oh, it's just an interview with John Barrowman." And she was like, "John Barrowman?" I said, "Yeah." She's like, "But that's not John Barrowman." And I was like, and I showed her the phone. I was like, "Yeah, it is." She goes, "Why is he talking like that?" I was like, "That's not his voice." I was like, "No, whenever he's in Scotland, he puts on this accent because he's Scottish, and it's really embarrassing."
Yeah, the Lulu
It's
effect.
proper fucking take the high road. Hoochie man over. Oh, Mrs. Mangles, come round to do some washing in the old scuddy for me. You know?
All I done was I wrapped my cock in the TARDIS console, and before you know it, I'm no longer
I
invited into the
swung my
fold.
knob around an auton and people are getting all up in arms about it.
You teabag Jimmy V the once.
I feel it's probably a good idea if I don't join in with this bit.
All our way just to pick up a chicken.
Teabagging Jimmy V. If
The
this
real
was-
trouble
That's an
happened.
episode title.
The real trouble happened
Yeah, I was
when
gonna
we all got the call for lunch, and there was a Dalek that was just there, and the top was off, and I just swung my balls into
I like how
it,
John
and-
Barrowman's become
Billy
Billy
Connolly.
Connolly there. It's just like, oh, hello.
Oh, hello, it's
John
only
Barrowman.
I've just done a wee jobby into the Android, and that's why Alan Ruskell won't do monster
You know what?
performing anymore.
Although,
You know
of course, for
what's
John
gonna-
Barrowman, it's
gonna be,
less
yeah.
big banana feet and more moderately sized banana cock. I didn't really think that one through.
This is my squareness cock. I don't know, hang on a second.
Squareness cock.
Great for the letterboxes.
But you know now that John
You mean the
Barrowman
posting
can't
hole?
work. Well, I'm just thinking. I'm just wondering.
But did you
now
know what the Latin inscription on the posting hole is? It's actually very interesting.
I'm just thinking about where John Barrowman's going to go to work next. And so,
So
I'm just
Mikey
thinking-
Smith, in defense of John Barrowman, says that Barrowman's a great entertainer of the old school, hence the accent in the interviews, etc.
I can think
Pertwee
of a
pretended
few
he was a scarecrow
entertainers.
for a while, for a whole day once.
I can think of a few entertainers of the old school who I'm quite happy not to see on television anymore too, frankly.
I mean, it's fair enough. I mean, like, John Barrowman is still alive. I mean, that's his problem. I mean, like,
And he should be fucking grateful for that. Is that what you said?
John
Like-
Barrowman's not going to get work in Western civilization anymore. So the next thing
He's
is going to
not.
be turning up relatives in other parts
What?
of the world. Good
can you
day,
imagine
my
if
name's John
Frankie
Barrowman.
Howard? Imagine if Frankie Howard or Kenneth Williams were still alive
Yeah.
today.
I mean, I'll say this for Barrowman. At least, and I mean, I know I've seen clips of this show he's touring. and it is a bit. And now we come to liars, but I will say this for him: at least he's not gone down the fucking rabbit hole of anti-woke. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's not tried to get ingratiated into that fucking crowd of charlatans, you know?
Yes, because given the conversation around him, he could very easily have gone reclaim, couldn't he?
Indeed. Or
He could have been the Mike Yates of this generation.
Yes, he could have been. Writing his
Richard
own
Franklin.
teabag mystery is
Johnny B's magic mattress. Yep. Kids shows that would never get made.
Kid shows that probably would get made and then apologized for after. I think that's. Anyway,
Well,
I don't know why we're on this track.
should we bring this evening, this celebratory evening, to a climax?
Yeah, I think
for want of a better word.
Yeah, I need to go and see if my wife and child are still alive, which is
that's fair.
You know,
Fine.
Is the screaming stopped?
Oh, the screaming has stopped. Yeah. I should probably go and check if that's a good
50-50, flip a coin.
Well, as Ben goes to check on his screaming wife and child, it remains for me to say thank you so much to JR, and thank you so much to you, Lee, as well, for joining us for this celebration of 20 years.
I love the fact that I got to thank so much to JR and Lee got and you as well.
I'm used to it, JR.
And
you
as well.
No, I said and Lee as well. I didn't say and you as well. I said and Lee as well.
It sounded very dismissive to me.
No. Stop trying to incite. Listen. Who are you? Me, fucking Queen Elizabeth, trying to stir rebellion between the Scots.
Oh yeah, I'm the only. Yeah, exactly. I'm the only non-Scot here, honor. So I've got to do something.
Exactly. 3-1.
No,
thank you.
We've just
thank you so much, JR. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much, Lee, for joining us, and thank you, Ben, for also being there.
Thank you.
Lee, thank you, mate. Thank you.
Well,
JR, holy shit, thank you so much. And Mark,
thank you for having me.
That's better. That's gratitude for you.
but allowing yourself to be had is all I can say.
The actress said
we've all been had.
Well, what a lovely celebration this has been of 20 years. It's exactly what Christopher Eccleston would have wanted. I don't know how to end this. Shall I just press stop?
You got a bunch
good night. No, sorry, JR, do you have anything you'd like to plug before we go?
Not Noel Clark, and that's a fact.
Hey!
Sorry, my earphone plopped out. Sorry.
Did it? I made a very rude joke about Noel Clark, so let's not go back.
It's all right. We'll stick it out on the internet where it'll be preserved forever. So don't worry.
It sure will.
And Lee, anything you'd like to plug or not plug?
Well, I mean, the Boss Box Live. We're back 1st of May for our starting our trial of Series 8 and Old Money of Doctor Who. So Terror of the Autons will be up first. That's with Jim Cameron, Andy Kennett and Kevin Greenan. And then we're going to do Mind of Evil, Claws of Axos, the whole lot. All
name them all.
Guests.
Name them all. A real Doctor Who fan would know all of the names.
Production codes as well, eh?
Yeah,
production codes too. Okay.
Yes, please.
And I'll be on Jim Allenby's What's in the Box this weekend.
Oh, lovely.
Dylan Reese's Too Hot for TV.
It's the weekend of JR Southall.
It's the JR Weekender.
Well, we'll be back. Ben and I will be back at some point soon.
Yeah,
I would imagine. But until then, thanks everybody for watching and listening, because these are going to go out as podcasts as well. And yeah, happy Rose Day to all of you at home. Good night.
It's 9 p.m. You've still got the whole night ahead of you.
Bye. Watch it again.
All right, we're done.